Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Hello to
Hello.
everyone watching on YouTube and Twitch. And in 1 second, we will be live on Twitter. I need to just tell Colin. I'm going to text Colin. Hey, Colin, can you make us live?
Oh, there it just popped
Twitter?
on. Okay.
So everyone knows Twitter's changed the way that we can go live there. So we have to manually set things up. So be patient with us on that front. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like button. If you're watching us anywhere, share that we're live. Hello, hello. We'll wait for some people to trickle in. You may have noticed if you're watching us on YouTube, Colin made us an incredible thumbnail today featuring our president riding a tank into Afghanistan or in Afghanistan. We're gonna debate. We're gonna wonder if Biden means what he says. We're noticing some propaganda from the military-industrial complex. Some well-known figures are popping up. Hillary, Condoleezza,
all the neocons.
The neocons, of course.
Did they ever go away, though? I mean...
Oh, no. Well, of course they didn't. They co-opted the liberals. So...
Yeah, no, the neoliberals and the neoconservatives are really the same group. You know, their game is all about never-ending regime change wars, making the world safe for business interests. And that naive belief that they use. And, you know, here's the thing. There's two groups. There's the ones that try to promote this naive belief that our methods are the best methods. And, of course, everybody else in the world wants our methods. So we're going to rescue them. You know, that's sort of the language that they used to prop up the Iraq war when they wanted to go to war with Iraq, right? It was, we're going to rescue them. We're going to spread democracy, save them from tyranny, all these things. So do I think there's some groups that actually naively believe that? Yes, I think the academic side of that entire movement does. And it's naive as hell because it automatically assumes that your group believes what you do, has the same viewpoints that you do, and embraces the same wants that you do. And it's really self-centered and naive, right? Then there's the other group that uses that to their advantage to prop up the military-industrial complex, the NATO industrial complex. These are the business interests that just want to make money off of selling weapons, arms, being contractors to any war entity, War Inc., so to speak. So they work very well together in tangent, and it's both parties, as we're seeing.
Right. So yeah, we just have aggravated progressives that just got text. So there's a fire alarm or a fire engine sounding.
Oh.
So
I can't.
yeah, so if you just got the text, welcome. If you are not on our text list, please go ahead and text COUP to 370-370. Get your phone out right now and do it while you're thinking about it, because you cannot rely on these social media sites, especially not YouTube, to notify you when we go live. It seems like YouTube is especially suppressing us as we speak. This is not usual at all. YouTube just simply does not send out notifications.
Not anymore, yeah.
We do that all the time. We still have people who will come to us or write on our social channels or write on Jordan's social channels and say, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you for 3 years or 4 years. It's great that you're getting back into it. And Jordan's like, what the hell? I've been back for, we've been doing this for 3 years. So
yeah.
It's really frustrating. So the fact is, having a text list helps us continue no matter what happens with the suppression. They don't want independent media to get the word out. And we have that straight from the horse's mouth. We have YouTube telling us in our email inbox saying, yeah, we do elevate voices like CNN. We literally, because we were going back and forth with them about why.
Well, did the CEO just say it too in that interview?
Well, yeah, so they have a blog post, but we were going back and forth with them about why they had taken down some of our footage from the Capitol insurrection. And they said, we didn't push back enough with the crazy Trumpers or whatever. And we were pushing back because that was ridiculous and absurd. And they said we didn't have, it wasn't artistic enough. And it was just bananas.
That makes no sense. It was a live stream. What were you supposed to, John was supposed to what? Pull out bear mace and start spraying the Trump people that were engaging in the, like, what does that even mean? Yeah. It was a live stream in the movement. You were watching what was actually happening. The reason CNN had contextual, dialogue around it is because they licensed the footage and created a report after the fact.
Well, and that's the thing.
I mean, how can they compare these things?
We said, we have this footage. We are the originators, the copyright holders of this footage. You guys took it down from us. And these CNN and NBC, I wrote and I said, literally, as we are writing this, NBC just sent us an email asking to license this in an additional way. They still want to license this footage. And why are they wanting it? It's not because it's fascist, horrible.
Right.
It's not because we're fascist, horrible people who have done something wrong and that there's something wrong with our footage. It's because it's historical, and it's because we are journalists who are documenting something historical. That's what we do. And so the response from YouTube was, well, we do give precedence or preference to
they protect their channels. Like, I know this as a fact. They're not privy to the same algorithms that we are.
No, they're not at all.
If they were, all of their stuff would be taken down on the daily. I mean, it's so frustrating. It's like that footage that I had some footage that was stolen by one of the majors where they hadn't paid a licensing fee. And I filed a DMCA because I was going to get a licensing fee from them. That's the first step of doing that, getting them to pay. And I get this ridiculous response from YouTube saying, we're concerned that you filed this DMCA takedown notice. Are you sure? And I'm like, wow, YouTube, that's not your job. Your job is to just honor the law, which is you take it down. And if they want to countersue me, they have the right to do that. Have at it. They won't because they know they stole the footage.
Yeah,
but I couldn't believe that was the response that they gave me. I was like, that is just way overstepping.
So these are the reasons why you'll see, we kind of started this in the right way. When Jordan and I co-founded Status Quo, I have a background in marketing. And so I had seen a lot of my clients have issues where maybe a site that had been an income stream or something go defunct. And so people then scramble to, they built their livelihood on this one site. And so it's never a good idea. They always, it's an old saying, don't put your eggs in one basket.
One basket, yeah.
A lot of people do. And so from the very beginning, I said, YouTube is not a business. We are not going to only rely on YouTube. And I feel like that's what a lot of the position that a lot of these YouTubers or progressive, commentators.
I agree.
That's the position.
That's their first mistake, because YouTube's they've already shown themselves that they're not a partner. And even if you go back before the internet, when you would have partner agreements with somebody that was doing distribution and you're creating content, there would be stopgaps in those contracts that would not allow them to just end them at the drop of a hat on their whim. And the YouTube terms of service allow them to do precisely that. So they're not your partner. They never have been. They've shown you that. And I was actually surprised. There was kind of off topic here, but while we're talking about this, there was actually a movement to sort of unionize YouTube creators as part of the Screen Actors Guild many years ago. And the majority of YouTube creators said no to this, which really surprised me. Because had they said yes, I guarantee the contracts would be a hell of a lot different than what they are now. There would be some sort of protections for the content creators, because right now there's none. You're at their whim. Yeah. And even if they're not paying you ad revenue, they're still making money on the aggregation of content on their site, right? No. So people that say, but they're providing you with a service of hosting, they're not. No, they're not. They want your content on the site, because the more content they are able to aggregate to an audience, the more viewership they're going to have in general. And they know that's true.
Well, and their arguments that they're a monopoly and that they should be, regulated, which I definitely agree with. But for now, it's the smartest thing is to own your business. And so that's why we have a membership model and always have.
Smart.
That's why we have the text list. That's why we have the email list. So what I need you guys to do, and let me share my screen here so that you can see what I'm talking about. What I need you guys to do is text COUP to 370-370, as I already said. I also need you to do this one, join our email list. You can't rely on social media sites forever. Go to statuscoup.pub/email. And our .pub address is just a branded bit.ly. statuscoup.pub/email. So do that for sure, because YouTube, not the one. YouTube is not the one.
We're getting some nicknames in the chat.
Oh yeah, Thomas Hoarder, $5. Super sticker. Oh, I guess on StreamYard it doesn't actually show us the sticker. I'm sure it's cool. I can't see it, but thank you, Thomas. Very, very nice. Definitely keep those the super chats, the super chat stickers coming. They really, really help us. They help us grow. They help keep us in the field. Absolutely appreciated. Thank you so much. We're letting the audience build up a little bit here before we dive into the stories. We're going to talk a little bit more about Marvin Scott III and his murder at the hands of jailers, correctional officers in Texas, Collin County in Texas. We're going to talk some more about Andrew Brown Jr. and his murder at the hands of police, and show you a great clip today from someone from Philadelphia, a woman from Philadelphia who works in trauma and grief. And she does this every single day. And what she does is empower people, the Black community, with tools to self-care. I don't know if that's a term that she would use, but it's to try to.
Doesn't she deal with the generational trauma?
She does deal with generational trauma, but she also talks a lot about how I'll let her explain it in her words, and then we can talk about it after. But she gives people the tools to kind of deal more readily with the violence and the trauma that are put upon the Black community. So she's fantastic. I would love to have her on and interview her.
Yeah,
she's a real inspiration. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about of course Afghanistan and what's going to happen. I think the military industrial complex is gonna win out. We're gonna also talk about my Rudy Giuliani. Thanks, Rudy, for my lifelong illness here. So we'll get into that as well. Also some other things. So thank you, the Ranter Station. Good to see you back here again. $4.99 in the super chat. Hey, ladies who are correct on things, should we rant on this issue? Also, do y'all have nicknames like Tina, Tip of the Ice, Iceberg, also Generation? Well, that's interesting. There's Jen Perlman, who's in Florida. She ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Oh, that's right.
And her show is called
Generational. That's right.
So my grandfather called me Jenny growing up, which I love, and I wish that I had just gone by that because I like it. It's sweet, and my grandfather was my favorite person other than my grandmother. And but I don't know why, but growing up, I somehow got this nickname Bug, like
Bug,
Ladybug.
Oh,
it got shortened to Bug, and people knew I hate, like my classmates knew I hated it, so it just became the thing. So I should have never told you guys this. Now it might become a thing. But so,
is that a pot take?
So then people would give me Ladybug like things, like stickers and things. So anyway, that's it. I don't really have other nicknames.
I don't have a nickname either. I need one, I guess. Oh wait, hang on. Well, that's not true. My Twitter handle's my nickname. I'm going with that.
Yeah, that's true. You can.
There's a story to that. So. So anyone that doesn't know what my Twitter handle is, it's Lefty Desiree McLefty Face. It used to be Lefty Desiree McLefty Face slaps back with milkshakes. So anyone who knows anything about milkshakes on Twitter will know who I'm trolling with that. And then I just had to keep it because it was funny.
No, you got it. Yeah.
So then I just
horrible.
Exactly. Horrible. Good old somebody. No. And then I just added Notorious to it after the milkshake thing got old. But I'm going to say that's I'm going with that as my nickname.
Silence is violence. Jen, how's your health? So super, super quick. For those who aren't aware, the long and short of it is I got COVID from the crazy Rudy Giuliani presser last November, where the hair dye was melting down his face. I got it from his stupid-looking son. And
that whole video is just priceless.
The very tiny RNC room in DC, and so I got it, and then I ended up a COVID long hauler, and I just had in the past couple of weeks an appointment with Johns Hopkins. It took forever to get an appointment. Thankfully, I live close, and I was diagnosed with POTS. It's postural orthostatic. I can never remember what it means, but it's not good. And so, in addition to being a long hauler, COVID caused this other thing. And it does not have, it can go dormant, but it's not a thing that can go away.
Permanent? Really? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that part. Shit, so, Jen, that sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks. So I have to do things like, it's so weird. I have to take.
God, it just infuriates me that so many folks have taken COVID lightly and pretended that it's not a big deal. Refuse to wear masks, like all of these things, and it can be very serious for a good portion of the folks in the world. I mean, how many deaths have we? It's not a trivial thing. It's not a trivial matter, and it just infuriates me that so many people want to treat it as such.
It's changed my life for the worst. I have fans on me because part of this is I have heat intolerance. I sweat easily. One of the ways that I was diagnosed is so my resting heart rate is one thing, but as soon as I stand up, my heart rate dramatically skyrockets. I start sweating and shaking. My symptoms are different depending on the day, and it's like the COVID or whatever, the long hauler attacks different parts of the body at different times. Sometimes I'm super nauseous. Sometimes I'm just extremely fatigued. I'm fatigued a lot. I was recently diagnosed with ADD, which is new for me.
I've had that my whole life.
It's new for me. It was caused by this, and I had a cognitive test with devastating results. It's affected my memory very negatively. Yeah. I've always had extremely high. This is not a brag. Like, I'm horrible at math. Like, just horrible. I have math anxiety. I can't do math at all. So that's
really
horrible. I literally am fearful.
I love math.
But I've always scored extremely high in verbal and language.
Right. That makes sense.
So in my Johns Hopkins testing, I scored below average, which was devastating for me. Devastating. Yeah.
That's the brain fog kicking in, or did they know?
Brain fog. Yeah.
I mean, I think you're doing a lot better. I've noticed a market improvement over the last few weeks.
I have to do things that I didn't have to do before. I have to take the right down a lot more. Tina's right behind her studio is a road.
I try to turn it down? I know. Hang on. All right.
No, I'm just telling them so they know.
Yeah. The Mack truck just went by.
But so I have to make a lot of life changes to kind of get through and to I don't know, appear as normal as possible, I guess. So that's the longer than I meant to, but that's the short of it. The Rancher Station Soda was literally only on the scene out of Stew Store, so I love it. Yeah. Thank you, the Rancher Station. Let's see. Look at Twitch and build it. I know it's hard. $1.99. Tina, we need that in writing. I don't know what that is referring to. You need maybe your nickname, your milkshake thing. I don't know.
I don't know either. Wait, I need more information. Am I checking in my? We need. Oh, okay.
Trill South.
I just followed you back. You can DM me.
Watch Twitch, Jen. We subscribe there and give bits. I know. Oh, maybe I can't see the bits here. So it's easier when there's someone else in the chat, because when I'm reporting, and as I told you, my brain is gone. I
was thinking maybe they had a consolidation though for all of the chats into one on this.
They do. Yeah. So I can see the chat, but I don't know that I can see the bits and the subscribers.
Oh, that's annoying.
I don't have someone feeding me, like usually someone sending me that. Like that's like, oh, so and so sent you bits. So I can't report and do 100 things. But I appreciate all of you, and I will try my best. But my brain is not strong.
We just lost Twitch, maybe. Hang on. Jonathan's saying Twitch just got cut. Do you mean, Jonathan, do you mean to cut out the stream?
It's there.
Actually, okay.
So it's there. Okie dokie. We got to start with the news here soon. Okay. Oh yeah, Renter Station. Check your Twitter. Okay, so we are super suppressed today. This is absurdity. So I don't know, crazy, freaking nuts. All right, so share this, guys. Share this. I don't know what is going on. Make sure that people know that we are live.
Jen, have you noticed though? Like, I noticed that, we used to have like 800 viewers live, whatever. Now it says it's 111. Yesterday was 200. But then the minute we log off, it escalates to many thousand. I wonder if they're just sort of throttling the numbers. I don't know. It seems very weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know. They definitely don't count it correctly, but this is not normal at all. So, okay. But anyway, we love all of you who are watching.
Here comes the Mack truck again.
Hello, Mack truck. You can share in your Discord, you can share in your Facebook groups, you can share wherever. But we're going to cover the news because that's what we do. So let's dive right in. Gordon is on his honeymoon, so he's taking a well-deserved break with Anat. They were married about 6 months ago, but due to COVID, they had to postpone. So we are holding down the fort here. While the Mack truck is doing its thing, maybe I'll go over this list instead of.
Shoot. You can still hear it? I thought I turned the mic down enough where it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, maybe if it now it seems gone.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I think we're safe. Oh, it's
No, it's yeah. So I don't know. I thought if I turn that down, then I have all this equipment and I really don't know how to use it. Let's be honest.
It's okay. All right. So for those of you who were not watching us yesterday, I wanted to make sure that you are aware of this really, really important story because Tina and I were not aware, and we are very in tune with what is happening with
at least we try to be. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think we look for stories that are happening with police brutality.
Yes.
And, police murdering Black people because it's an epidemic. It's horrible and it keeps happening. And this was a story that we somehow were not aware of, and we think it's a huge failure of the national media, especially. So this is Marvin Scott III's family. And Marvin Scott III was, I believe he was 26 years old.
Yeah, young.
He was standing around in an outlet mall, and he had marijuana on him, as people do, and who cares? Nobody cares about that. And he had the cops called on him. And so he was taken in because he had marijuana. Again, who cares? And
yeah, it was less than 2 ounces too. It was nothing.
Yeah, I mean, people can debate on that. Like, it doesn't, like, I don't care. Like, it's marijuana.
I don't care. You know what? I would say even beyond that, Jen, too. Why do they always try to turn it around and make it about the victims of the police violence, when in reality, cops are not supposed to be executioners, period. Even if the person is guilty of some crime, does it actually matter? Is it up to the state to assign a police the duty of being both jury, judge, and executioner? Because that's basically what's happening.
Yeah, well, so let me tell them this.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, sorry.
Well, Earthbound Life says 2 ounces is a large amount. Yeah, so 2 ounces is probably like $400 worth. So it's not like nothing.
I don't say that. I don't think that. Really, you think that's a lot?
Well, marijuana doesn't weigh that much, so it's
all right. Well, I live in Los Angeles. I'm just going to say that.
Well, having bought weed at your weed
exactly,
it's expensive. Yeah. So anyway, I don't care if he had 800 ounces. Marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol.
Right. Yeah,
So, anyway, he had schizophrenia. He was suffering mental health issues. So the cops took him to the hospital, and he was discharged and taken to the jail. And his health or his mental health issue escalated, because that's what can happen when someone has a mental health issue. They're taken to a jail, and they're in distress, and
Yeah.
we're not treating him the right way. In fact, they were violent and antagonizing him, and really, really mistreating him. And so, you know, the details you can look for on our channel. We go really in depth into it, but he, by the end of it, was dead that same day. So he was restrained. He had a spit mask put on him.
A hood.
Hood, yes. Excuse me.
Horrifying. It's the same thing they did to Daniel Prude. Like, these things should be outlawed.
Right. Yeah, and it was, yeah, and so he was killed. And 7 of jailers were, you know, let go, fired, and 1 came back. They are not arrested, and that is what the family is calling for. The family, by the way, was not informed that Marvin had been killed until the next day, and they were informed by text message.
Oh, I didn't realize it was a text message. That is so offensive. That is so offensive.
I can't even imagine. It's absolutely disgusting. So that's something I really wanted to make sure you guys are aware of. We played these videos yesterday, so you can check out our Twitter or the YouTube channel to watch these, to catch up on this story if you did miss it. I find it a really, really important story, and a really underreported story. We are absolutely going to keep up with all of the updates. Yeah, I just am heartbroken, as everybody is who's aware of the story.
Who's aware of it, yeah.
Okay, so this next one is the clip that I was telling you about. The Andrew Brown Jr. murder, and John was down in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and Andrew Brown Jr. is the Black man, a father of 7, who was murdered by police. There was a warrant out for his arrest, and police officers shot him. They lied about what happened. The family has only been able to see a very small portion of body cam footage, and redacted footage at that. They've been able to see 20 seconds of redacted footage, and not even the closest, body cam. And it was found through an independent autopsy that the family had to pay for, that Andrew Brown Jr. was killed with a shot to the back of the head. Mm-hmm. And the only time he tried to back away, he was in his vehicle, was after the police started shooting at him. And right, as anyone would do, if someone is shooting at you, you're going to try to get away.
Absolutely.
So this community, Elizabeth City, is a very small town. So this community has been coming together, and folks have been traveling down to Elizabeth City to show support. And so Lamia Broussard is a trauma specialist and a grief specialist. And she traveled from Philadelphia, and she explains earlier in the longer clip, which we have up on our YouTube channel, that she felt called to come down. And this section that I pulled to put up on Twitter, I found especially striking. So I'm going to play this section for you. 1 second here.
I do grief groups every day, and most of those students look like me, and most of them are males, and I work with them every day. But I do this outside and been doing COMS since 2014, and so this is disenfranchised grief, invalidated grief by society. This is suffocated grief. I got the book here during that time to speak about. That's not only when our grief is not invalidated, but it's also penalized. protester, watch violence in Philadelphia die. What does that tell you? Black people, especially our black men, can't even afford to have a mental health crisis. And you be killed in front of your mom, your community, your neighbors. That is what's called prolonged grief that they're going to be dealing with. This is all that we're dealing with as a black people, which is worse whenever the death is sudden and violent. And that's exactly what our brother Andrew Brown Jr. went through here, being killed, when there's so many other tactics that can be used. There's so many other, shoot the tires out, whatever you got to do. Shoot them in the foot. Shoot them in the foot. What about if you have to do that? But those things don't happen. And whenever it's something that's continuously happening over and over again, just look at the numbers. We all about numbers and research. As the pastor said, you do not see, and I never want to see no one getting killed by police. The reality is you do not see white men lynching that's happening publicly. You don't hear about it. You don't see about it. Even as a black woman, I'm not as much as a risk as my black brother is. And so this is why I'm here. We're here, but we're here promoting the wellness.
So I found that clip really important.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I would love to interview her. The prolonged grief that she speaks of, and the fact that this kind of violence, this kind of murder, this kind of death, it happens over and over and over again. And it happens in front of the community. It happens in front of the family. It happens in front of the neighbors. And as she said, when the death is sudden and violent, that prolongs the trauma, that prolongs the grief. And then it happens again. And can you imagine? That is trauma stacked on top of trauma, stacked on top of trauma.
Yeah.
And then when you combine that with the trauma of the last 400 years, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. It's more than heartbreaking. It's time for people to get angrier about it, and we have to have change. This can't continue. It can't. And it seems to me also, Jen, I've noticed that there's fewer people coming out into the streets. Like when we were there on May 30th, going into June, there was definitely a more stronger presence. And I don't know why this has died off. I mean, I know some folks probably think because Derek Chauvin was convicted, we did something to change. It'll be better now. But the fact is it's not better. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I mean, we talked about yesterday how we had a death in Alameda County last week too, which was exactly the same as George Floyd, where an officer had been pushing in prone position on the ground and had his neck on his back and neck. And he's dead. Like, this is outrageous that this is continuing on.
Yeah. So I think what she spoke of is something that, I wish that she had such a larger platform, a huge platform, because I think this is something that everybody needs to hear and understand. Those people who don't get it, who don't see
Right.
why people are marching in the street, or who say, oh, why are they still marching down there in Elizabeth City? That death was 2 weeks ago. Why are they still upset about George Floyd? That was
because we need structural change, folks. Structural change. Without structural change, nothing improves. We're just repeating. It's like wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat.
Well, yeah. So, but I mean? I think that's absolutely true. But I think Lamia's point would be that this isn't something that you just get over. This grief,
right?
Grief,
right.
And I think too, this reminds me of a clip, and I should have pulled this up. Right when the Derek Chauvin verdict was called, it was a great shot. There was obviously a lot of celebration, and everyone was hugging and cheering, and there was such joy in the air. But immediately, in between tears and hugs, people were just turning to each other and saying, you know, we got this one, we're not done, we're going right back out there, we're going to keep going, you know. And also a great point was made. They said, you know, they're going to say that the system worked, that this is the reason that Derek Chauvin got charged, is because the system worked. The system didn't work. It's because we, meaning they, the organizers, the Black organizers, we did this. We stayed in the streets, and that's why this happened. So I really, really think that Lamia is just fantastic.
Yeah, she's right. No, she's absolutely right. And I, you know, and it is. I have seen a lot of activists making those claims at some of these protests where they're saying, "No, we haven't changed enough yet. We have to keep going." I would just like to see a bigger presence from their allies out in the streets with them. You know, I feel like a lot of the folks that work within the Democratic Party ranks or who are Democrats were out in the street in May and June, you know, trying to be allies, and those folks have sort of not been turning up lately. And I would hope that would change. That's what I'm getting at. I think that there needs to be more folks, you know, causing an uproar and realizing that the real structural change hasn't come yet. I mean, it's we're getting closer to it. I mean, there's definitely been some concessions, but certainly not enough to change the course of events for other folks in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Not provided, $5 in the super chat. Hello, sorry to bug you again, but I wanted to check to see if you got my email. If not, I can try sending it from my other email address to troubleshoot. I have to admit, I'm solo for the next 3 weeks, so I don't know, to be honest. I am
okay. So, do you want me to, Jen? She can email me direct if she wants. I'll give you my public email.
If you have a public one, then sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to give my. Yeah, all the fascists that are like watching this are like. So just email me and I'll put you in touch with you. You're looking to Alex still. So it's Tina, TINA, Berg, BERG @yahoo.com.
Perfect. That'll work. Thank you, Tina.
100%.
Let's see here before we move on. And by the way, definitely check out Lamia's full speech. And I also linked to her LinkedIn so that you can check out her.
Oh, right on.
And she also talks about she says so much. I'm really standing Lamia right now. You should definitely look at her full clip for sure. So.
Well, I think because what she's talking about is important. So often we don't discuss the emotional ramifications of all of this trauma, and there's no way it doesn't have any effect, a lasting effect, even.
Right. Let me. There was some term that I wanted to.
Gosh.
What was the term here?
I love our chat. Sometimes I like to read this stuff.
Oh, I guess I didn't write down the term. Anyway, so this is the video. Definitely check out this video. So so that you can get the full clip here. All right.
I will keep everybody posted if I get wacky emails.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You may get some. You never know.
You never know. It's all right. I get wacky emails anyway, so.
You guys can watch me. I forgot to retweet the Twitter live stream here.
Oh, you're
the behind the scenes. I told you I'm solo. I'm doing the job of 85 people, and I'm sick. You have to forgive me. All right. Okay. Here is a clip that, thank goodness, I will not usually say this, but thank goodness for the algorithm. Sometimes the algorithm on Instagram sent me this gem. So this is from Sarah Silverman, and I like Sarah Silverman. I think she's not always great. I think she tries. Her her message to Bernie supporters in 2016 at the DNC, I didn't love, but I think
that was a misstep. I think
she's a good heart. I think she tries. So
I think that's fair.
I'll forgive her that. So this clip in particular, I found really striking, and this clip is from her podcast. So she, to set it up, this is a caller. She has people call into her show.
Huh.
And so this caller talks about her brother who asked for a recommendation to join the police force. So let's listen to what happens.
Had a brother who was on the police force in San Jose, and when he was starting the process to become a police officer, relatives are sent out a packet. It's basically like a evaluation form, whether or not your relative is cuckoo or not. And mine was. And so on the back of the form, it said, is there any reason why? And I said, yeah, don't ever give this guy a gun. He shouldn't have a gun.
Wow.
And I said I didn't believe he should be a police officer. I didn't believe he had the right level of maturity, wisdom. I don't know. Anyway, he did become a police officer. I never heard back. I never found out. My brother and I didn't have the best relationship, but he felt like he needed me at that time to get into the force. And he did, and he wound up shooting somebody and killing him. And the case was, like behind closed doors. It was sealed, whatever they want to call it. It wasn't for public to find out. But my brother wound up getting off. And it always kind of, in a weird way, haunts me that, I tried to let them know. And he just wasn't equipped. And unfortunately, my brother did pass away a few years ago, not from being on the police force, but he just led kind of a tragic life.
So you can go to at Sarah Kate Silverman, her Instagram, if you want to watch that full clip. The rest of the clip does talk about his tragic life. He was gay and didn't live that life, and kind of chose to be kind of wanting to be like a macho man instead. But the point of that clip is, I think, illustrative of the police force in general across this country. That sister tried. She knew that her brother was not a fit for the police force.
Right.
She warned them that he was not a fit for the police force. Her brother killed someone. And it was a case behind closed doors. The public didn't get to find out what happened and why. The public didn't get to find out that the sister had warned them, and he got off. And imagine how often this happens. We don't know. We will never know.
That's bad. So this was in San Jose. That's Silicon Valley area, Northern California. I am curious to know if we can find out who this gal is, maybe interview her and find out who her brother is, because I would be wanting to dig for those records.
Yeah.
File a CPR or a FOIA request. But that is amazing to me that she warned them and they still didn't care or didn't want it. But it just speaks to how toxic the environment is. We talked about this yesterday. The way the training is not going to solve the problem, because the training these officers are given is very much this macho, everybody's the enemy. It's better to shoot and ask questions after. I mean, that's the kind of thing that they're fed daily, in their environment and in their trainings. And most of their trainings aren't even up to speed. We recently had we talked about this yesterday a little bit, the 40 millimeter less lethal rounds. They were trying to get an injunction against the LAPD using them. The NLG was. The judge gave them a partial order, but part of what was included in that is if the officers had the appropriate training, they would be allowed to use these less lethal 40 millimeters. And I read this and I'm like, this is worthless. It's absolutely worthless, because right now they're going to send the entire Rampart division to this 2-hour online training and say, voila, they're trained, go at it. It solves nothing.
Yeah.
Because the idea that we have of training, right, a common sense idea for your average civilian is like, oh, they're actually going to learn how to use these things properly, and they'll think it through before they use it, and it'll be much better. Yeah, that's not what happens. It's not what happens.
Yeah, you would hope it does, but it doesn't. And you would hope that the hiring, the powers that be who hire these people would pay attention to a sister who says, do not hire my brother, he is not mature enough to handle this, that they would pay attention to that. But no,
they don't. And it also speaks to this idea that they should not be going on mental health calls. They shouldn't be going on homeless or unhoused calls. Like there's a million things that we send the police to do that they should not be entrusted with doing. So again, the structural changes that need to come, they haven't been addressed. Derek Chauvin's trial did not address them. It was a step in the right direction. I'm glad that he's being held accountable for his actions. But, we talked about this yesterday too. We need to get rid of qualified immunity. Until we get rid of qualified immunity, there's going to be little accountability from most police actions. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm with you. I would love to find out who this guy was. I would love to interview this sister. Yeah.
I'll see if I can look into that because that's fascinating to me. Did everybody see the NYPD thing last week with the Molotov cocktails? Did folks see this? Because I think this is another prime example of where they overreact to something and they're so insular in their thinking that they don't even see how ridiculous they sound. All right, so let me just run everybody by this in case they didn't see it. If you did see it, you'll laugh at this. But the NYPD put out this tweet that they had pulled somebody over for a traffic stop and that the guy they pulled over was throwing Molotov cocktails out of his car window at the police officers. So I see this tweet and I'm like, there must be video of this, right? Molotov cocktails, like fire bombs, like really? And did the car not explode? Like, my mind's going into all these scenarios. So I go and I find the Bodycam footage, which they incidentally did post on their Twitter. And I'm looking and I get to the part where this is supposed to be happening and it's a kid and he's got a glass of ice water and he's tossing the ice water at the cops, like doing this, right? So I'm like, are you kidding me right now? That's not a Molotov cocktail. So I took a screenshot of that. Then and I put a tweet up that basically said what the NYPD says happens, what actually happened. So then the NYPD comes back with a second series of tweets, and they have a photo of a plastic water bottle. Has anybody ever tried to light a plastic water bottle on fire?
Doesn't seem like that was so great.
So they had this plastic water bottle and they sat it on the top of a cruiser between the windshield and the hood, and they put a dry sock on top of it. It's completely dry. And they say, look, here's another one of the Molotov cocktails. I'm like, that is so ridiculous. It's so staged. It's so ridiculous. You're not going to make a Molotov cocktail out of anything other than a glass bottle. Plastic's going to melt. Like, there's no part of this that is in reality. No part. But yet here they are doing this on Twitter.
Right.
They're doing this on Twitter as if this was like going to be, the public was going to read this and be like, oh, I'm horrified. How could people do this? It's like insane. It's insane.
Unbelievable. Just, oh my goodness. It's one thing after another. It's constant.
You have to laugh at them in their propaganda because it's just so unbelievable and absurd.
Absolutely.
Does everybody know the Tampon Story too? The LAPD Tampon Story? Oh, actually, it was the sheriff's department. Pardon me. They said somebody at Starbucks put a tampon in their coffee, and then they ran to. We have a reporter here who is more or less a stenographer for the police department. He works at Fox News. I know that's going to be shocking to you all, and he's now taken a job actually working for Tucker Carlson on Fox National. So also not surprising, but it turned out to be a completely false story. But of course, he went to town with this, never questioned anybody else, took the cops at their words, had a photo of this giant blown up tampon it's probably still up, actually. This guy's so stupid he wouldn't delete it. But then yesterday, or maybe the day before, the LA Sheriff's Department came to him with this other story about, there's another truck. Sorry guys, hang on.
What are they doing out there?
It's trash day. It's Tuesday. I always, whenever we go live on Tuesday, I remind myself, don't go live during this time because it's trash day. Sorry, guys. Anyway, but the LA Sheriff's Department really gave him this video to release about how a female was calling this officer a murderer and ranting and raving. And quite frankly, it was a solid rant. I listened to it. It was like, she has a few points there. But of course, they were making this like this was incredibly offensive and good on the police officer for keeping his cool and not getting angry back with her. But so everybody assumes that this was like some body cam footage or something. It wasn't, because you know how I know it wasn't? The LA Sheriff's Department doesn't have body cams. To this day, the LA Sheriff's Department does not have body cams. They don't exist. So clearly this was, so clearly this is a guy with his cell phone, who knows how staged it was, et cetera, et cetera. But the same reporter put this up on his Twitter and was saying, look, he's so calm, cool, and collected, and what a horrible woman. She's a teacher. She needs to be fired.
Unbelievable. Yikes. Well, you gotta, Thomas Hoarder said, Tina is a seriously formidable woman, just like Jordan and Jen. I love status quo so much. Wonderful. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Martin Boucher, 5. I learned what CHF is from, but now I forget. I'm sorry.
What is?
For it, the currency. I can't remember it. But thank you.
I can't either. Thank you.
Why you think besides status quo, almost no covering of this, not even from the most progressive channels I watch? I don't understand why.
I don't either, Martin.
I don't know, Martin, and I have this program that I use to analyze competition, not competition in a bad way, but other channels that are similar to ours. And it helps you look at, other
trends, what have you.
Trends, what's working for, say, Crystal and Sagar, what's working for Kyle, what's working for whoever. And I'm not saying, I'm not using them as an example. I'm just saying, it analyzes people like that. But it, I have to say that in certain other people, it does seem like they're only chasing the things that they know will get the clicks.
Sensationalized stuff. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, and
I mean, look at the uptick in anti-vaxxer stuff that's been going around all of a sudden out of nowhere. Right. So that must be getting clicks, must be getting views.
Yeah. Well, and so when you think of a story like Marvin Scott III, that is not a lot of people don't know of that story. So doing that story and putting that story in a headline is not going to net us, 100,000 views, because people are not searching for his name.
But it's important work, so.
Yeah, but I don't care, because I want to let people know that this story is important. So exactly. I think most of this is not I'm not saying this to give myself a hand clap. I'm saying I am mad that this story is not national news. So I literally stayed up until 2 a.m. Using Jordan's Twitter, using every account that is available to us, our Instagram, my Twitter, Status Quo's Twitter, all of our accounts. I was clipping stuff about Marvin. I just spent everything I could to share their GoFundMe link, to share their story, because I'm so pissed off that this is not national news.
Yeah.
So as far as the answer to this question, I don't know. I think the answer in certain cases is that people only care about money, and they've somehow fooled people into thinking that they don't and that they are progressive or whatever. I think other people mean well, and you really, as a lot of these people are just small or one person, and as one person,
I don't know. Yeah.
You can only cover so much. You know, right now we aren't covering foreign stuff because we're only a couple people.
Yeah, I mean, and there's other police shootings that have happened this week as well. I mean, It's crazy that I have to say that, but Chicago's had a couple. I mean, it's overwhelming. We've had 12 here in Los Angeles.
People could come on our channel and say, like, hey, why aren't you covering XYZ? Why aren't you covering, you know, right now there's the Enbridge pipeline. There's Gretchen Whitmer has said no to the pipeline, and there's like a fight with Canada. I want to cover that, but there's so much I want to cover. There's the border. I want to cover the border. I want to be at the border. I can't because of my health. I want to send someone down to the border. I can't because of money. You know, so Martin,
I'll go down to the border.
Yeah, I know. Like, but we need a camera person. So it's a very involved question, but it's a great question, Martin. Thank you for answering it. But we try our best, and I hope that other people try their best. I do think that certain people, certain channels have other intent, and that makes me angry. But I can
it depends. Yeah,
I can tell you that here at Status Quo, we do try our best. We only care about the stories. We only care about the people. Let's see here. I thought we had. Here we go. The Rancher Station.
That's true. This is a good point about manufacturing consent.
Let's be honest, it's all corruption. When the 4 black billionaires start buying politicians, then Black lives might matter. That's an interesting point. Yeah. That would be an interesting kind of experiment, I guess, right? Like, what would happen if, I don't know.
Well, you know, it's that intersection that we talked about yesterday of capitalism, money, and racism. All of these things are most definitely married to each other. They don't exist in isolation, you know? Economic systems prop up racism. Time and time again, we see it through history.
Yeah. The Rancher Station again.
And no group is monolithic in its beliefs, so that's just a fact. So people need to stop viewing groups as monolithic, because that leads to problems as well. There's always going to be a range of viewpoints within each group.
Yeah. The Rancher Station, another $5. You're awesome. The main task of manufacturing consent is story selection.
Now this is so this is Chomsky right here. Absolutely, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason that I do not work at NBC. I mean, my first job was with a local network here in Los Angeles back in the 90s, but there's a reason Jen and I don't work at CNN or whoever, you know what I mean? They wouldn't hire reporters like us because the stories we want to do wouldn't be upheld by the producers there, right? There would be constant tension.
I would not last a day at corporate media.
Exactly.
Not at all. Never.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. Not at all.
So this is true about story selection. It's true.
I always forget to unclick the thing, and then I just scroll it back to find it. Just FYI, everyone. Cryptician Status Quo is the best when it comes to field reporting and progressive reporting in journalism. Thank you. All right, let's get back to the news. The news. This one I just wanted to cover quickly because I think it's kind of an interesting side note. So this is Channel 4 out of New York. NYPD struggles to find new recruits as retirements also rise. Let's all shed a tear for the NYPD. Calls for change in the New York City Police Department have echoed across the city these past 2 years, but the largest police force in the country is struggling to fill its ranks. With the application deadline to become a member of the NYPD extended until Tuesday, NBC New York's David Ushri is asking the questions many are wondering. Who would want to become a police officer right now, and why? So basically,
I mean, there's an argument sociopaths, but
right. So they're
but that's not what they're getting at.
Yeah, so there's that here. So, but convincing other young people that is the challenge police departments across the country are facing, not just in New York City. There have not only been a plunge in applications, but there's also a surge in retirements. It's tough being a cop right now with all the rhetoric and things that may be happening throughout the country that have an effect on New York and how we want to do our job. Oh,
yeah, and lie about Molotov cocktails flying out the windows. I mean, come on now.
Everyone make a frowny face.
Exactly.
Said Chief of Department Rodney Harrison. It's really hard. Just last month, the department instructed its officers not to take unscheduled days off ahead of the outcome of the Derek Chauvin trial, the former Minneapolis officer who was later convicted of murdering George Floyd. So why would anyone want to be a cop right now, Harrison says? To make a difference.
Oh, God.
Harrison, who has his own share of experience with policing in the Black community while growing up in Queens, says it's not easy to address these concerns. I got to talk to the young men and women out there about a lot of the good things that come about being part of the NYPD, he said, adding that there's more to being an NYPD officer than the uniform. I started my career in Queens in Astoria. One of the things I always share with the new police officers coming on is to try different parts of the police department.
This is like such propaganda right now. I can't.
You can go into become undercover, go into aviation, go into computer crime. There are so many careers the NYPD has.
Oh, man.
Officer Matthew Jackson was one of the young men who heard Harrison's message. As a kid in Harlem, he was mentored by Chief Harrison. He admits battling anti-police hostility on the streets, but the positives are far greater. On and on. So
I cannot believe that they actually published this. This is propaganda. This is propaganda.
It's
It's cringe. This is so cringe. This is NBC. Yikes, NBC.
Yeah, so it's a real cringy story. I just really wanted to make fun of it.
Can we make fun of it? I mean, because the real story here would be like, okay, well, let's examine the reasons why they're having a hard time recruiting police officers. Isn't that actually the real story here? Not publishing propaganda to get people to see them differently than what they are?
Right.
Maybe talk about the corruptness in the NYPD. Maybe go interview Frank Serpico about his experiences. I mean, there's a million things you could talk about. There's reasons people don't want to join the police force. And that's why we only have sociopaths or like massive psychopathy involved with the guys that do. Look what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if some people, I think, don't want to join the police force because now it is clearer than ever, perhaps, that this is not a group of people that you want to join. So maybe people who would have joined with maybe good intention and later on been swept up and turned bad. Maybe now they're not going to. Maybe they're now not going to join. Maybe others who would have joined with bad intentions or said, well, now who would want to join with these hoodlums or whatever. Maybe now they're not joining for the wrong reason or whatever. But to make it out to be this article, this propaganda article.
Jen, your mic you're getting hard to hear.
Let me know in the chat if you guys.
Is it just me? I'm wondering, or
I don't see anything yet, but let me know, guys.
Okay. It's I think part of the problem too is the way the police department and the police force has been sort of just glorified by Hollywood for decades too, right? The stories that they tell about cops, about the police force, it was kind of like, okay, is it better now? Okay, so they've glorified this and have told tales that aren't really accurate about what the police do and what they're actually like. They have made them heroes, so per se. I think a great example of this right now is Jamie McBride, who is a union boss here at the LAPD. He got into it with LeBron James about a tweet that he had said about, cops being murderers, and it was a perfectly acceptable tweet, but Jamie McBride went after him and even told the NBA that he should be disciplined for what he said, which is an outrageous thing. It's like, are you kidding me? Then you go look at who Jamie McBride is. He's been involved in plenty of officer-involved shootings, which is their parlance for we shot someone. His daughter has murdered, who is also Tony McBride. His daughter's Tony McBride. She has murdered somebody. But he has been hired by Hollywood on multiple occasions for movies. He's worked for Michael Bay multiple times. So this is a guy who is also a member of the Screen Actors Guild, right? And he's just a big Trump supporter. You go to his social media, although a lot of these things have been deleted now. There was a photo of him that I took a screenshot of where it said Donald Trump's life matters, except it was a BLM logo. So that's the kind of people we're dealing with, right? Yet Hollywood glorifies this and says that they're heroes and that it's, a worthwhile endeavor and you'll be helping people, not, and then in reality, they're out here, brutalizing and occupying populations with, military grade equipment. So now we have NBC being stenographers for the cops, which is just another form of propaganda.
Well, yeah. So they're making it out as if it's the people who are the problem. It's the protesters who are the problem. These mean people. These awful people. Oh, the cops are met with such opposition on the street. These meanies on the street. They're literally printing, as if these cops are 5-year-olds whining.
Right.
And it's right. Sort of weird article.
It's weird. It's just so disconnected from everything. And, there's really no excuse for it at this point. Here in 2021, there's no excuse. Especially, talk to any of the press that have worked a skirmish line, and they're going to have tales about how they've been brutalized by officers. As you know, I've been shot up by these guys a couple times. The LAPD broke my car window, intentionally shot my window out when I was covering a protest.
Well, in last year, I was
yeah, that's right,
by police and lost all my equipment and they, my phone, and some of you guys may have been watching the historic.
I remember that. Jordan sent me a text. He's like, I can't find Jen and her phone is still streaming.
My phone streamed for, I don't know, an hour or two without me.
And he's like, the weirdest part is there are people tuned into the live stream still wondering where she is. I'm like, that's awesome.
People said it sounded like you could hear just shots of pepper bullets or whatever in the background.
Pepper bullets are terrible.
It sounded like a war zone in the background, but it was just dark on my phone. So there's no excuse. If you're a journalist and you're just being a stenographer for what the police want you to say, then shame on you, because that's just so broken from what reality is at this point. And I don't think it can be. How can you excuse this? How can you excuse this? And especially when they're trying to go after First Amendment rights. You cannot convince me at this point that isn't part of the deal, because we've seen. Look, it's bad enough. Don't get me wrong. I am not minimizing the way protesters are treated by the police. I am not doing that at all. I think it's horrific. The reason I am out there on the streets with these protesters is because I'm so appalled by how they're treated. And I want to make sure that other folks are able to see what happens, to really see what happens and not have this NBC article, thrown at them and think everything's fine, right? But I think that they absolutely do target the press. And I think, there's that night that I filmed the activist that was being beaten by a riot shield. He was on the ground. He had not resisted anything. He hadn't been doing anything wrong in the first place. From the beginning of that moment, the police had approached the vehicle that he was in. It had been a sound truck. If anyone's been at these protests, sometimes they have what they call a sound truck, where they have somebody playing music. And this was in West Hollywood and marching down Santa Monica. So it was let's dance in the streets sort of a protest. Well, the sheriff's department, they had them approach the vehicle with their guns drawn. And so I started filming. I had been back and I started running forward to film this better, get a close-up thing. And they pulled the kids out of the car, had them on the ground. And one of the sheriffs starts just beating on him with his riot shield, just heavily beating on him, with all force. And as I moved in to get a better shot, everybody else is running away, and I'm like an idiot. I'm running forward. But as I'm coming in, one of the sheriffs started just
intentionally shooting me up with these pepper bullets that hurt like a mother. And I know that was intentional, but I was like, fuck you, I'm standing here and I'm going to film you. So when I got home that night, I had massive bruises.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if I think I saw pictures, or maybe I was with or saw them in person. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, you were here like the week. You might have. I still have the injuries there. I still have. I mean, one of them I had hit. I had a tear in my jeans, so it hit the raw skin. I had like a blister that formed. I don't know what kind of chemical agent is in those things. I thought they were just pellets, but apparently they're not. But point being is, this is what they're doing. And what was wrong with any of it? We have protesters that are exercising their First Amendment rights. They have a right to do that. And I'm, as a journalist, exercising mine. And this is their reaction to that. So it really kills me, Jen, is most of the time when they do this, they just escalate things. Whereas the protest would have probably finished its course. People would have hung out a little bit and gone home, right? Well, now they worked up all the protesters and they're angry. So now stuff just gets escalated on both sides, right? So I just don't know why they do this stuff. Like, is it just, it's just, I mean, we could talk about all the psychological reasons why, obviously those exist. But, but to get here, I guess what I'm getting at is it's private property rights. Let me just say that. I think they're more concerned about protecting private property rights. And that's what this is about. I have another video I'm thinking about now where the police LAPD officer was basically saying that they had arrested these folks. Nobody knew why. So he stupidly decided to do a press conference there on the sidewalk. And he actually says, we pre-arrested people. They haven't committed anything, so we can't actually arrest them. But we detained them before they committed crime. So good on us.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me right now? We're arresting people for thought crimes. That's where you're at, LAPD. Wow.
Corruption out the wazoo. It's never gonna stop. All right, I guess we got to get to the Biden.
Okay. Because I love talking about corrupt cops, as you know. I could go on for.
Let's talk about some more corruption on the scale of the last 20 years and beyond.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. This is a good topic too.
So, as you guys are aware, Biden had his address, his joint address to Congress, and he announced, to the surprise of many, that he was going to withdraw us from, make a full withdrawal from Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the summary from Axios if you weren't paying attention, or
hard exit. That's an interesting framing.
Yeah, so they framed it as the hard exit from Afghanistan.
Yeah, so I don't think that's entirely accurate, but let's carry on.
Right, exactly. So the biggest foreign policy surprise from President Biden's first 100 days was his decision to act on a promise his predecessors hadn't: the full U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Why it matters. Biden didn't settle on an unconditional withdrawal because he saw a path to a stable Afghanistan without U.S. troops in the country. Instead, he argued that it was clear by now that no such path existed with them there. Flashback. As Donald Trump's May 1st deadline to pull out approached without any announcement from Biden, a delay became inevitable, likely with all the usual caveats about supporting the diplomatic process and responding to conditions on the ground. One Middle Eastern official told me knowingly that Biden's challenge was to convince Americans that he was getting out and the Taliban that he was prepared to stay. So to the surprise from Biden's mid-April announcement was not the timeline, all U.S. troops out by September 11th, but how definitive it was. This is not conditions-based, a senior administration's official emphasized. No counterterrorism force would stay behind. After 20 years, America was getting out. Senior leaders in the Pentagon reportedly argued against that approach behind closed doors. Former top commanders like David Petraeus did so publicly. In his speech, Biden mentioned the counter-arguments, such as the U.S., would be abandoning its leverage or handing its foes a victory, and discarded them as a recipe for keeping American troops in Afghanistan indefinitely. So there are some points that we should discuss here.
Mm-hmm.
And I re-listened to Biden's speech on this right before going live. And I find it honestly hard to kind of decipher him. I find it...
I'm sorry for laughing, but yes.
Oh, it's
that can often be the case.
Because I think he does really do a good job of coming across as like, oh, good old boy, sincere Joe. I have a good heart. My boy Bo was in the war. I understand. Yeah, I voted for the war, but now I went in 2008, and we can't keep doing this. It's clear that it's clear that this is just gonna, that everyone keeps saying that if we withdraw, then it's just gonna leave a vacuum, and they're just gonna keep saying that no matter what. So he's making the right, every argument that I have, or a lot of the arguments that I have against these military-industrial complex people, like the Hillarys and the Condoleezas and the David Petraeuses, Biden said in that speech. And so, in a good world, that was a good speech and a good plan, but can I trust him? No, probably not. I want to. What are your thoughts?
I think this is a very complicated situation. Let me just start with that. I think when we look at George W. Bush's wars, that Afghanistan and Iraq are two totally different entities and different domains of discourse, and I'll explain why. Afghanistan has been a place that has been invaded multiple times by multiple countries, not just the United States, and it's always been a disaster. It's disaster after disaster after disaster. So I think that's the first thing we need to look at. I don't know that it made sense ever to invade either Iraq or Afghanistan, but for very different reasons, right? So Iraq was obviously, this is the bigger fish that they wanted to fry, so to speak. There was no evidence that was clear and true. They fabricated it. We know they went to war on fabricated evidence. That's not a controversial statement at this point. There was no weapons of mass destruction. And they did this knowingly. I mean, this to me makes the entire Bush administration war criminals on a scale that is just beyond understanding to me. But this is what we are looking at, and it really, I can say tangentially, couldn't get that word out, that it really irritates me that people try to rehabilitate George W. Bush at this point. No, do not rehabilitate that guy. He's awful. He did awful things.
Down there painting immigrants now, right?
I can't. The guy, he belongs in The Hague. He's a horrible, what he did is so unforgivable. And it was, the dead bodies on the Iraq side, on the U.S. side, like all of it is just horrifying. And for what? But so he tried to, I think it's worth historically looking at, because he did try to loop Afghanistan and Iraq to get all of this together, right? We do know that Al-Qaeda has always had a stronghold in Afghanistan, also not controversial. We also have given them weapons, right? It depends on who's our bigger enemy, Russia? Because if it's Russia all the time, then the things we've done to fight Russia that have come back to haunt us are manyfold, right? Afghanistan is just one example of that. So, and also NATO, the NATO forces that are there. We could talk about the NATO industrial complex, how, in 2017, Trump made it easier for weapons dealers to sell weapons to all of these various countries. We used to have some sort of stopgaps in place where it'd be like, well, are they going to be a horrible dictator? Should we ask if that's the case, or should we just sell them arms? Not that was that difficult to get around, but at least there was something there. That was taken away by Trump in 2017. I'm pretty sure Biden's not bringing it back. So all of this obviously has to do with money. But I think that just all of that exists, but I think we have to look at Afghanistan for what it is, right? So they talk about the Taliban. Who is the Taliban? Are they a terrorist group? Absolutely. I don't think that's, I don't think that's controversial either, but they already control more than half of the country. even now with the United States presence there, also not controversial. I think 52 to 54% of the territory is Taliban controlled, and they run a shadow government. You have situations where businesses pay a tax, so to speak, or you can call it a tithe. You can call it mafia money. It's sort of like a mafia thing, right? Protection racket, where they pay money, to the Taliban. If they don't, then the Taliban comes in and blows up their businesses. They control the drug trade. So is any of that going to change with or without U.S. presence is the first question I think we should ask ourselves. And the second question is it our moral obligation to make a decision for the Afghani people, or is it their decision to make? I think a lot of the times when we invade countries and we stay in them for decade upon decade upon decade, we don't bother to ask that question because all we care about is our business interests or our assumed American corporate interests, right? That's what drives every policy decision that is made. So I would like to see that that's not the case here. And the minute you take that out of the mix, it becomes a very complicated situation. So I don't have an answer is what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is this is a very complicated situation. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it totally is. Before these super chats disappear, I'm going to put them on. The Ranter Station, $5. Tina, it's fun to hurt people. There's no good reason. We need a second
Oh,
force.
the cops, yeah.
Dial 811 and get the polite force martial artist with non-lethals. I love it.
I like this idea of 811 or something else. Not to digress from the military-industrial complex we're having now, but Eugene, Oregon has a different system than the rest of the country has, where if you do call, like for a mental health crisis, you have a different team show up that has nothing to do with the police department. And I think that's what we should be doing across the country.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. The Ranter Station again.
The weapons makers are in charge. I don't disagree with that.
Biden
are in charge.
He is not in charge of the military. The weapons makers are. This is a massive virtue signaling exercise. I think that I agree with you, and we're going to go through a couple more articles that definitely goes in that direction.
Yeah, I just wish people would ask better questions about the situation. Like everything always spins on that, right? It's what the military-industrial complex wants. It's what business interests wants. And none of that serves the people that are involved and that pay the ultimate price for these decisions that are being made by these leaders, right? And it needs to change. I'm not sure how we change that without getting money out,
Right. Surrender 2000, $15. Thank you. TD Berg, your rare class aware source, not rabid individualist, equals most YouTubers that will not unionize. Tags.
Oh, okay.
Notorious Femmes. N. TD Berg and N. Jen. Marx's life name is Jenny von Westphal. Very, very.
That's great. That is a really good point, though, about the individualist aspect, the ego-driven aspect of why they wouldn't want to unionize, even though it harms them. But you know what? That is a very, very valid point, I think. Interesting. We were talking about that earlier in the stream.
Oh, okay. It's like, I don't remember.
Briefly. Yeah. Somebody was listening to me.
Yeah, so I'm just going through these before they disappear off the screen, then we'll get back to it. The Ranter Station, $5. The Dems hug Bush's nuts because they want to flip Republicans because that's cheaper than courting progressives. That is 100%.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
The most infuriating thing in the world. Hillary did it, and she didn't even pretend to not do it. She was like, we don't need to burn people. Biden did it.
Bill Clinton said that too. In the last, going into 2020, he was saying that the Bernie Sanders would be worse for the country than Bush would be. I mean, again, we have to look at the Clintons from the lens of the fact that they are third way neoliberals. Neoliberalism is not something that came about because of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton has been around for many decades previous to that. But he's the one that really brought it into mainstream Democratic Party centrist dialogue, right? Before that, you would have maybe neoconservatives, trying to push the Republican Party in that direction. But this is when there was a real shift in who the Democratic Party decided they were going to respond to. It was corporate interests. It was believing that the market could be the moral arbiter of decision making, that privatization would, serve everybody's interests better. And none of this ended up being true. We know that now, and folks were warned about it. But Bill Clinton was able to make those things very real. And people forget that NAFTA, for example, was not his bill. NAFTA, though he was able to get it passed through, was George Bush Sr.'s trade bill. That was George Bush Sr. He couldn't get it through Congress. Bill Clinton could. So that was a real shift in where the party went. And you can see the degradation into where we are now from there. It sort of just accelerated where we had been headed as a country. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, makes sense. I just want to address this. Andrea LaLoca. I've heard people say call the fire department. That's interesting. So my husband's a firefighter, and they get a lot of calls for all kinds of things. Yeah.
Jen, does he get, okay, let me ask you this, because I've often wondered this, and I think it's probably different from city to city, but is there a way to, because I feel like if you call 911, it automatically gets routed through police dispatch. Is there another number you call to get the fire department directly, or how does that work? Because that makes more sense to me. The fire department's awesome. I love the fire department.
That is a good question. I believe that
I'm curious to know.
911 as an emergency and you get routed like somewhere. But that is a great question, because how do people get to him? So he ends up going on calls for like people fall down, or like someone's acting weird, or like someone needs help somewhere. Yeah. So like some of these calls that police do end up responding to, he goes on.
Yeah, they're both there.
Yeah,
thank God for the fire department. But usually the fire department's picking up the pieces of the LAPD.
Well, yeah. So my husband is Baltimore, so they'll get there first, and this is interesting.
Okay.
And so if the fire department gets there first, it's like there's a little tension of who is
in charge
to handle. And so that is an interesting thing too, because if like the cop gets there, like let's say someone is in a mental health crisis or trouble or something. So if like the fire department or EMTs or whoever gets there first, imagine if it's like a Black person in a mental health crisis and the fire department EMTs, that person's going to get care and help. They're not going to end up dead because the fire department is not going to kill them. They have no way to kill them.
Right. Or no desire to. It's just a completely different culture.
Like nobody hates firefighters.
No. I mean, I've seen the fire at these protests after the LAPD has wreaked havoc on people. The LA Fire Department shows up with paramedics, and you just see the LA Fire Department guys going, because like really, why are they beating people up? Where they literally hit people and beat them up. I mean, this one time they threw this girl. She really got hurt. They threw her over this barricade. I mean, literally just were like, I was like, what in the hell am I watching? And then her husband hit the cop, which I was here for. I was like, I'm here for this actually. That cop, like this was a normal reaction to have, right? But the girl was really hurt. Then of course they went after him. But you could see them on these guys' faces that they show up and they're like, why are we always cleaning up these messes for the police department? And I think that's a solid question.
I'm asked. Okay. Trail South Digipimp, $2 sent email crazy Marvin Scott protest video Sunday. If you're talking about the one with the white racist guy, we showed that yesterday. It is nuts.
It's crazy.
Absolutely nuts. You guys should definitely find it. I can't remember. It's Jesse Ringness. I can't remember the name of his channel though. But we showed a little bit of it yesterday. Lee Merritt also showed part of it as well. So yes, definitely find it. It's freaking nuts and infuriating. Absolutely. Okay, keep those super chats coming. They help us keep reporting. We are super small and super independent. Absolutely only answerable to you guys. So we will get back to Afghanistan and some of these infuriating articles.
Yeah.
I'm texting my husband about these questions. So someone is crazy. Maybe I should.
Okay.
We're having a mental health issue.
So now this is the Hillary Clinton part of the story?
Yes, sorry, okay. So here is a piece about that has some statistics that I found interesting. Of course, they're comparing Trump and Biden and saying, you know, Biden's scoring and Trump fumbles, which obviously,
yeah,
Trump did fumble. He was supposed to be, you know, the anti-war guy, the anti-military industrial complex guy.
Yeah, he was never that guy.
He was never going to be that guy.
He was never going to be that guy. He just sold people a bill of goods like a lot of politicians do.
So the thing that I found interesting about this article, Out of the Hill, is Americans largely want to be out of Afghanistan, and that is no surprise at all. So clearly there's plenty of room for Trump to build an unassailable case for withdrawal, taking a swipe at the policies of George W. Bush and Barack Obama, and give himself a much-needed boost in the polls. But Trump blew it, and now Biden will get the win. I would say maybe if Biden.
Maybe, yeah.
The most recent polling has Americans favoring withdrawal by a 73% to 27% margin. That's pretty big. Majorities in all demographic groups and among Democrats, Independents, and Republicans favor getting out. There is hardly an issue in American politics that enjoys such widespread support. Polling has been clear for the last few years that getting out of Afghanistan would be a political winner. A 2020 Koch Institute sponsored poll.
Yeah. Wait, can we just have that for a second as a topic of conversation?
Right? I mean,
Koch is sponsoring YouGov polls now. I mean, well, hang on, it was the Economist, so I guess that's really not. I would think Cato Institute would be, but that's not a stretch, I suppose.
Yeah, right. Yeah, obviously Koch should not be sponsoring polls, but anyway. One might claim that support for withdrawal reflects a lack of knowledge of the situation, but a 2018 YouGov poll showed a majority of the public in favor of withdrawal and even higher percentages of U.S. Armed Forces veterans supporting withdrawal. So that is an interesting statistic as well, that the armed forces and veterans support withdrawal as well. So the Brookings Institution attempted to put on a brave face on public support, claiming in a headline disingenuously that Americans are not unanimously war-weary on Afghanistan. So, I mean, obviously this is the Brookings Institution. Yet both polls it cited showed pluralities in favor of withdrawal. I just found those interesting just as kind of a framing for that. And here is what the first thing that I woke up to this morning was this alert in my face.
Oh wait, hang on. Let's talk about this Hill thing for a second.
Okay, sure.
Well, you can, as you pull that up. So of course, you know, my brain is like, why does it say Koch Institute, like Cato Institute? Cato has been funded by the Koch brothers since like the beginning of Cato, decades ago. I know they were linked with the Economist. So of course I have to look this up, and I didn't realize this. Apparently, David Koch got pissed at the Cato Institute and left them and started his own thing. So that would explain that. But I think the important takeaway from this is that the Brookings Institute is supposedly on the left. Like, this is supposed to be a left-sided think tank. So you've got Cato, Koch Institute. These are obviously very extreme right-wing, libertarian, Ayn Rand kind of type think tanks. And then you've got Brookings on the left, and they're all pretty much have their thumb in the pie, right? Because they both support the military-industrial complex and everything that they do. There's very little difference between their end wants. They're just trying to frame it in a way for their audience that's different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do we sell it to the left versus sell it to the right, even though we want the same thing at the end of the day?
Right. Aggravated progressive says, sad, our opinion doesn't matter. And that is sad.
No, it doesn't.
Same,
it is sad.
Situation that we have with Medicare for all, which now even when you factor in conservatives, the majority of people want Medicare for all. They want universal health care, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter among Democrats, which is over 70% among Democrats want Medicare for all, and our Democratic leaders don't care. They don't care at all.
Yeah, I'm laughing at this. We need to get Tina some muscle back up when she's covering protests. She's too sassy. I'm like, you have no idea how sassy I can be with the police too.
That's true. Okay, so this is what I woke up to this morning. Was this headline from Newsweek popping up on my phone, and the headline is, U.S. military official says Afghanistan could see military collapse, civil war after troops leave. So mind you, this is the same argument that they have been making for 20 years, that if the United States leaves, everything collapses. There's civil war. It leaves a vacuum over and over and over. Every single time we try to leave or anyone mentions leaving, oh, it's a vacuum. We got to stay. Oh, it's a vacuum. We got to stay. That is every single time. So I tweeted the Newsweek. Oh, also, in this piece of Newsweek journalism, fresh from the printers of the military-industrial complex, there's an ad to join the army.
Yeah.
The headline article itself is the same song and dance we've seen for 20 years.
That's
so literally,
insane.
I opened up the article, I clicked on the notification, and it opened up to an army ad. I mean, can you get any more on the nose? You cannot. So here's the article itself. No, I do not want to have a trial of you. Why won't you go away with your little banner? Ugh. Anyway, so again, this is Newsweek with their ridiculous headline. U.S. military officials are preparing for every possible scenario as their forces plan to leave Afghanistan, which, by the way, the process started on May 1st. So General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told reporters traveling with him Thursday that the pullout is complex and not without risk. The extent to which the Taliban could continue attacking Afghan government forces during the U.S. withdrawal is a concern for the Pentagon. Of course it is. During a Wednesday appearance at the Sedona Forum, which is hosted by the McCain Institute, Milley said as the troops withdraw, military officials will watch the level of Taliban attacks on the Afghan security forces very carefully. Oh boy, I wonder what's going to happen with the level of Taliban attacks. Can we predict?
But here's the thing, that they're going on regardless of whether the United States stays involved or not. So this is really a disingenuous conversation, which is what I was trying to get out earlier. I mean, we're talking about a country that is already half run by the Taliban. That's just not a controversial statement, what I just said. I mean, and I don't think people realize that because nobody discusses these things, right? It's always from the viewpoint of the United States and the military-industrial complex as the hero.
Right. Yeah. So, where was I? Okay, so in the worst-case analysis, you have a potential collapse of the government, a potential collapse of the military. You have a civil war, and you have all the humanitarian catastrophe that goes with it. So here they are. He's presenting. He's saying this is the worst case analysis, but they're putting out there that this is for a humanitarian concern. So they're saying, we're really concerned about the Afghani people.
But they're not. I mean, they're not.
No.
That's the problem, right?
They're not concerned at all about the people. They're concerned about profits. They're concerned about the military-industrial complex. That's what it comes down to. They don't care about the people. at all.
And notice how it's always the conversation is always centered on the United States is the good guy and what we do is the right thing always, no matter what. It's never centered on the other countries' point of view that we're, occupying, more or less. We're occupying this country, but yet we're still centering the conversation about what we think. And their voice is never heard, right? I mean, when's the last time somebody actually spoke to Afghanis? And of course, they're not a monolithic group. There's going to be a large swath of opinion on this. There are going to be folks that want the U.S. to stay, and there's going to be other folks that don't. The question is the United States making things better or worse? And whether or not what we're doing really does take into account what the folks there want is, because I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think there's a moral intent here, even though they frame it that way every time. And it's not just with Afghanistan, it's with every war, right? There's always this, we're doing the right thing. We're the humanitarians. We're the good guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Look what we did to Iraq, being the good guys. It's horrific.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That's how we present ourselves, and that's how we will always present ourselves. And I hope that Biden means what he says, and that he knows that this is the argument, that they will always say this. They will always say that this is the problem. And that he
means here's the thing, Jen, it could very well be a problem. There's some valid points being made there, but that doesn't excuse
forever.
Here's the thing, folks, there's already been an ongoing civil war there. This is not something that's just going to spring up out of nowhere because the United States leaves. It's been there. This is an ongoing thing that's been there. The Taliban never went away.
Right. We're not the cops of the entire world. We're just not.
We think we're the cops.
Yeah. We think we rule them all. So there's more to this piece. If you really want to read Newsweek, I that's up to you.
That's up to you. I don't advise it. I advise reading. Do folks know that there's an actual Afghanistan newspaper?
I'm sure they assume that. What are you talking about?
The one that I sent you the article on. I'm saying if people want to really get to the source of what's going on in a country, try reading the local news there. Is it possible that there's some wrong stuff in there? Of course there is, but at least you're going to get a different voice or a different viewpoint on a situation. You know what I'm saying?
So here's the one that.
Oh yeah, here we go. Hillary Clinton.
The comma press. So I'll show. Was there a certain section? This is about the 52%. This is from February. The 52%.
Yeah. I just thought this article just made some really valid points about actual facts on the ground that folks don't really, hear about. Like, does anybody want to talk about the fact that 52% of Afghanistan is under the Taliban's control already?
Right.
That they're funded by the businesses there because they pay a tithe or a mafia, what do you call that? The VIG. They pay a VIG. To the Taliban for protection. It's a racket. That they control the drug trade, which is very lucrative, opiates. So there's a lot of stuff going on here that hasn't entered the conversation from the American media point of view. If you look at what Newsweek and these other, The Hill, are any of them talking about this? They're saying there might be a civil war if we leave, but I'm saying there already is a civil war. There's already a tension that's existed that's never gone away between the Taliban and the government that they have set up.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's really valuable to get, the perspective, the local perspective and perspectives from around the world that, are not coming from our propaganda, the delivery.
And, there might be news guys that work at this particular site that are, doing stenography for American business interests. That's probably the case. But at least, I don't know for sure, but I sometimes go to sites like this just to find out, other things. Like, well, what are they saying, actually in Afghanistan at their local news? So, point being that it's a complicated situation. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. I just think it's complex like a lot of these things are. And nobody's really kind of given the whole story about it. They're just giving a point of view that's driven by the business interests And I don't think that's, I just think the way we report on these things and the way we view these things needs to change. Like for me, if I had the money and we had some progressive news sugar daddy guy that was funding status quo, I'd get on a plane and I would go there.
Yeah.
And I would talk to the Afghanis. I would want to know what they had to say, and I guarantee you're going to get a diverse response because no group is monolithic. That's the other thing a lot of Americans do. They want things to be so neat and tidy and in a box. So it really helps if things are neat and tidy in a box, because then we can just make a decision and be done with it, and that's the best we can do, right? But no human endeavor is ever neat, tidy, and in a box. And no group is monolithic in what they believe. You know, you're going to get a right wing to a left wing opinion in every single group, but white Americans tend to want every other group out there to fit tidily into a box where that's not the case. And then they want that small portion of opinion to fit with what they already believe because it makes it more convenient. So,
yeah, I think it's good advice, and it's important advice. Yeah, for sure. I agree. I don't know. Maybe I'm holding off on having to read about Hillary.
Yeah. Philosophy is so much more fun to discuss, right?
All right, here we go. BBC. Hillary Clinton.
Henry just said usually in a 6-foot box.
Hillary Clinton.
I laugh, but it's painfully true.
Think about a 6-foot box? What is that?
Yeah, 6-foot box. A coffin.
Oh my God.
That's what American troops do, right? We go and we kill people.
Oh, I thought you were.
Am I wrong, Henry? Am I reading you wrong? If I'm reading you wrong, let me know. But that's.
Oh, I thought you said Hillary.
Oh no! That's sorry. Oh my God, no.
Like what? Tina, that's a little far.
Oh no! We're still talking about American occupation, not okay. No, bad. Well, okay.
Yes, that was definitely not what
I don't think that's what Henry meant either. We were talking about the other thing.
Yes, total misunderstanding. Okay, Hillary Clinton warns of huge consequences in Afghan U.S. troop withdrawal. Of course she does. Of course she does, because she's Hillary Clinton.
She's a neocon. She's a neoconservative.
The one who cackled about, what was it, Gaddafi? Cackling.
Yeah, God, that was horrible. I mean, granted, Gaddafi wasn't the greatest guy out there. I'm not defending him as a good person, but she is just grotesque for how she handled that. That was just, oof.
She wants to like drone strike Assange.
Right.
Just go back in the woods, Hillary.
Henry says his work for today is done, by the way.
Oh my God. Awful. Okay. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has warned of huge consequences of President Joe Biden's decision to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan. Mrs. Clinton told CNN there was a risk to the Taliban, the Islamist group ousted in 2001 by the U.S.-led invasion, could retake control.
Mm-hmm.
It aims to complete the withdrawal by 11 September. However, the Taliban have been carrying out more attacks. This is what we call a wicked problem, Mrs. Clinton told CNN. I wonder if there's a video that I can play.
A wicked problem. That's what she called this?
Hillary. My grandmother used to call her Hillary Dillery.
Madam Secretary, let me ask you about a big decision.
Oh, not really. Let's listen to her.
Sorry, guys, we're going to force you.
Which is to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan. There are only a few thousand there now, but they will all be gone by the anniversary of September 11th. What do you think of that decision?
Well, it's been made, and I know it's a very difficult decision. This is what we call a wicked problem. There are consequences, both foreseen and unintended, of staying and of leaving. The president has made the decision to leave. And I think that our government has to focus on two huge consequences. One, the potential collapse of the Afghan government and a takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, probably with a resumption of civil war in certain parts of the country, but a largely Taliban-run government at some point in the not too distant future. How do we help and protect the many, many thousands of Afghans who worked with the United States and NATO, who worked with American and other NATO-connected contractors, who stood up and spoke out for women's rights and human rights? I hope that the administration, in concert with the Congress, will have a very large visa program and will begin immediately to try to provide that channel for so many Afghans to utilize so that they are not left in danger. There will also be, I fear, a huge refugee outflow. And of course, the second big set of problems revolves around a resumption of activities by global terrorist groups, most particularly Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. And I agree with a recent article that you've written, Fareed, that we've seen a really sharp drop in both capacity and action on behalf of Islamic.
So she's not even
hiding it.
She's like not even just focused on Afghanistan. This is going to destroy the entire world.
Yeah. Well, but notice also she said NATO contractors. That is it right there. That's really two important things that she said. That's the NATO industrial complex. She's talking about weapons sales right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish I could play this whole thing, but we can't because it's not our video.
Yeah.
And it's also
woke imperialism. That's exactly what it is. Let's just put some rainbow flags on our bombs and be done with it. So, Philip Raines, I don't know if I'm taking anybody back to PTSD from the 2016 campaign, but, he worked before he worked on that campaign for her, he worked as Secretary of State for her. He's an arms dealer. He has a lobbying firm called Beacon Management. That's what he does, is arms sales. So she has surrounded herself with folks in this industry, and she's certainly obligated to them financially. So she's not even hiding it.
She's a real psycho. I can't.
Yeah, I agree.
I cannot deal with Hillary. I can't. I'm so mad. Mad World 1962, 5 Canadian buckaroonies. By the way, a book called Washington Bullets by Vijay Prashad is a fantastic primer for understanding U.S. imperialism. Oh, that sounds good. I'm going to screenshot that.
I have not read this. Okay.
New book Rex.
Washington Bullets. All right.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's definitely some guys that do some great work on foreign, where they go very much deeper into foreign policy and the effects of U.S. imperialism. And, obviously, I'm not a deep expert in this topic. I have my beliefs in it that are formed off of reading things, but I'd always like to maybe talk to some of these folks that are writing this literature, because a lot of them are scholars that have devoted specific amount of time to just, smaller areas. Like I specialize in Afghanistan and what happened there in the last 30 years. And these guys really know their stuff.
Yeah.
Is that super geeky, nerdy? Or, oh, by the way, today's the 4th. Happy
4th be with you.
Yeah. Sorry. Is that too,
No.
Is that too nerdy? I'm all like, speaking of, may the 4th be with you.
I like Star Wars. My kids love Star Wars.
Okay.
Dave L. $5. This is woke imperialism. We're protecting LGBTQ plus in Afghanistan, folks. Yeah, right. It's that old the bombs with the.
Who was it that had one of the? I can't remember. It was Lockheed Martin or Boeing. One of these large defense firms currently has a gay CEO. So they were trying to sell. Like Bloomberg had done this article about how it was a woke. Look, they're woke now. It's not just, and it just, I hate this stuff so much because
the CIA just put out an ad with like a female, I don't know if she's Latina or Hispanic but everyone was like, okay. You're not woke, CIA. It's not going to work.
Or the NATO one, that the tweet that they had, 3 or 4 weeks ago about diversity, retweet for diversity, and that was incredibly offensive. There is okay, not to go off into another tangent, but, Ukraine has a very serious neo-Nazi problem. And a lot of those folks are aligned and a part of NATO that are also part of the Agave battalion. So I think this is an area of concern. And so, I personally, when I saw that, I was like, wow, I got to retweet this with, I have a photo of these guys holding up a NATO flag on one side and then their Ukrainian Nazi flag on the other, all together, in the photo together. So I'm like, diversity? Really? Because nobody seems to want to do anything about this.
Right.
And the Biden administration is fully aware of who these folks are. They played footsie with them because it served their interests against Russia. Again, it's like if it's against Russia, we'll tolerate just about anything.
Yeah.
We'll arm Al-Qaeda. We'll play footsie with neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. But really, is really Russia that much of a bogeyman, whatever, that's the case, that you'll accept anything else? I just don't understand why.
Well, we love freaking Saudis, and they did
another prime example.
They did
absolutely.
and the Bushes. Oh my gosh, you guys have to read Family Secrets. Have you read Family Secrets?
No. Is that about Bush, George W? Or
about the whole Bush line? They are way more psychotic than you guys even know.
Really?
Like way.
Is that possible? Do you know how psychotic I think they are?
Way more psychotic than you even think they are. From Poppy, and whoever is before him, I can't remember the dude's name. Family freaking Secrets. Read it. It's insane.
Were they part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that were working together for the Pell Memo, in the early 70s?
I don't know.
Was that in the book? Okay, never mind.
I don't know. I'm honestly not through all of it. But
okay, I'm curious to know.
But I don't even remember what my point is because my memory is bad. But they the complicity of, I'm not being a 9/11 truther, but there's a lot there. With arms sales and setting up things that led to the point where we are now, and things with Saudi Arabia, and even with the Bin Ladens, and it's
absolutely, yeah, absolutely with the Bin Ladens. That's what always slayed me about his entire war argument after 9/11. We know it was Saudis that were mainly involved with the planning of that act, yet it was we can't do anything about the Saudis.
Yeah, money.
Instead, we're going to go after Afghanistan and Iraq.
Bunch of psychos.
It is. It's psychotic. It makes me so angry. So folks that try to rehabilitate him, that just makes my blood boil at this point. And they want to forget how bad he was and make this conversation about Trump. But you know what? George W. Bush.
That whole family, I cannot handle them. You got, let's do a book club. Everybody read Family of Secrets. Moni Lou, 78, $20. Thank you so much, Moni. Really, really appreciate that. That's incredible.
That's very generous.
Thank you guys.
Thanks everybody for being so generous today. This is awesome.
Yeah, these super chats help so much. Yes. Don't Tell the House Slaves. Judith Miller writing that article. How does Judith Miller live with herself? How is the New York Times still considered the paper of record?
They have been pro-war for most of the years they've been publishing. It's really unfortunate. Look, we can even go back. We're talking about the Iraq War. The way that they banged the war drums for the Iraq War was, a lot of folks might not remember that they had that fake source, right? This is, was it Magellan? I'm trying to remember now, that was saying where all these sites were, the weapons of mass destruction. These are where the sites were, and none of them turned out to be true. None of it. But why didn't they double check those sources? Why? Because it came from state?
Yeah.
Have you met state?
Carne Verde, the Bush family is a crime family going way back even beyond Prescott. Yeah, Prescott.
Okay. Prescott, that's the grandfather. Right.
What a bunch of psychos. Just nuts. Absolutely nuts. Anyway, now I'm all fired up. You got Hillary. You got these freaks. Okay. Maybe I will finish this lunatic.
Terrorist groups. I don't think, though, we can count on that
curveball
in a downward spiral if the Taliban continue to provide refuge to international terrorist groups. And sadly, ever since George W. Bush asked them all the way up to the efforts at negotiation in the last months of the Trump administration, the Taliban has never been willing to separate itself from Al-Qaeda. And we know that the current head of Al-Qaeda, who had been bin Laden's deputy, al-Zawahiri, is still somewhere in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Who we gave weapons to originally because of Russia? Hello?
So I think these two huge sets of issues have got to be addressed. I mean, it's one thing to pull out troops that have been supporting security in Afghanistan, supporting the Afghan military, leaving it pretty much to fend for itself. But we can't afford to walk away from the consequences of that decision.
Finally, Madam Secretary, give President Biden a grade. Overall, first 100 days, how's he faring?
I'd give him an A, and I'm a hard grader.
Oh my God, I can't. Okay, I can't do it.
Did she just say that?
I have to stop.
And you're right, it was curveball. It was curveball. That was the name of the source.
Yeah. Not. That's all the Hillary I can handle.
Yeah, that's about all the Hillary I can take too. I don't know, man.
Oh boy, that's like a challenge. like how much Hillary can you handle in one go?
Yeah, that's we already crossed that threshold for me.
Yeah, so that I guess is that's that's all we know right now. I mean, that's obviously definitely not even the tip of the iceberg as far as Afghanistan. It's a very, very complex topic, but as far as the events, we'll see what happens. We don't know what Biden will do. We don't know what Biden's intent is. We do know what the intent of the military-industrial complex is.
Right.
So,
well, their intent is to always sell weapons. They don't care what they leave in their wake at all.
Right. They don't care at all. Someone made the point in the chat that we have contractors.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're all contractors. And in fact, Hillary used that term, NATO contractors. That's exactly what she was referring to. These are private entities that are profiteering off of war. Call them war incorporated, if you will.
Yeah.
But they've been a part of the landscape for many years now, decades.
And not only do we have contractors who are there physically, but we also have all these contractors who are here in the United States who are doing work for there. And so there are a lot of people whose pocketbooks rely on being in Afghanistan. And
Eisenhower was right all those years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
If folks have not seen Eisenhower's parting speech, farewell speech, go watch it, because he predicted all of this.
Yeah,
he
absolutely did. It's depressing. Yeah.
It is depressing. We're a hot mess. The United States is a hot mess.
It feels naive to watch Biden's speech and say maybe he means it. And I do think I'm a Pollyanna, and I tend to give people too much credit and believe, a Biden who is like an old uncle, like, oh, he talks nice and whatever, and maybe he means it, but he probably doesn't. And
I don't like Biden.
No,
I don't have. Biden. I know you don't either. I just can't see him as the warm, fuzzy uncle guy because I just really don't like him, and I've never really liked him. I had beefs with him when he was VP.
So I'm from I grew up in Delaware, And my grandpa, like, was socially in his circle and didn't like him.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
My grandpa passed away when I was 16, so I didn't know that, like, he didn't like him until I was an adult. My aunt told me later, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really wish that I could ask him why and, like, get all the dirt, but alas, I cannot.
Did you keep a diary?
God, I wish. My grandmother was really fascinating one. The Ranter Station 199 in the super chat, Shillery. Hashtag Arkanside. Just kidding. Laura. just kidding again. Okay, so let's move on to, we've been going for 2 hours. I don't know, do you want to stop or do you want to do Giuliani, or do you want to do anything?
I am game for whatever you want to do, my friend. Are you feeling good? You look like you're doing okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, Delaware, the haven for U.S. loan shark predatory credit agencies. Delaware. Yeah, you're 100% right. And also, I am determined because Delaware has an incredibly high cancer rate because of freaking DuPont. Also, DuPont is so disgusting. They're one of the DuPont kids, and by kid I mean he's like 40 or whatever by now. He raped a 3-year-old and did not get in trouble. Like, he got
what?
Yes, it happened like 5 years ago or something. So I'm determined. I'm gonna research the hell out of DuPont.
How is this even possible? Like, oh my God, I have not heard of this story. How is he not in jail?
Let me pull it up.
A 3-year-old?
DuPont. 3-year-old.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah, it's a horrible story.
Yeah,
I mean,
and obviously other people haven't heard about this either. What the
guys?
Fuck?
Mega trigger warning. I warn you. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
Okay, how DuPont Air avoided jail time for a heinous crime. On February 6, 2009, Robert Richards admitted to raping his 3-year-old daughter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What? His own daughter?
Yeah. I feel horrible, he told the judge, according to court documents. There is no excuse for what I have done. His lawyer, calling the 6'4", roughly 300-pound Richards a somewhat gentle person, argued he would not fare well in jail. Hours later, Richards walked away from the Delaware Superior Court a free man. He pleaded guilty to a charge of rape in the 4th degree, paid a fine of $4,395.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And promised to attend a high-end treatment center in Massachusetts. Judge Jan Jordan, who presided over the case, had initially considered sentencing Richards to 8 years in prison. Ultimately, she gave him 8 years of probation. I have concerns about this because arguably you should be in jail for what you did, Jordan said during the sentencing. But I think you have significant treatment needs that have to be addressed. And you have very strong family support. Oh yeah, there would be strong DuPont family support.
I am so angry and disgusted right now. How is this even possible?
Yeah. While he never worked for or had any affiliation with the DuPont company, he still benefits from the family fortune, which Forbes valued at $14.3 billion. And on and on. The case was missed by the local press. Imagine that. Wow. Fascinating. And he avoided any negative attention. That is until 2014, after his marriage had ended, and his ex-wife, Tracy Richards, sued him in civil court for monetary damages caused by his crime. Suddenly, the earlier case became a national sensation, fueled by public outrage, and many were astonished that Richards had evaded jail time. So, that's what being a DuPont will get you.
I'm speechless.
I know.
Oh my God. His own daughter. 8 years wouldn't have been enough.
No.
Meanwhile, we have people serving 25 to life for smoking pot. What the fuck, America?
And being murdered for pot, Marvin Scott.
Wow. Okay, Jen, I need a drink now. I don't know about you, but that's the most appalling thing I've heard in a very long time. I am speechless how disgusting that is. Who the fuck rapes their 3-year-old daughter and then doesn't do jail time for it?
Right. And how did that? No, how did local media just
miss that? How do you miss that? This is just repulsive. I feel sick.
That's what I don't get about the media. How can you be a journalist and just not report something like that? How could you just not do that? How can you be a person and sleep at night? As a journalist, that's your job.
That little girl is never going to be okay.
No, never. That's
wow.
Yeah.
Jen, you got to warn me before you drop these things. I have never the fact that I've never heard this story and like other folks have never heard this story is just completely appalling.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Maybe that story obviously needs to be more widely shared, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Jesus. I have no words.
Yeah, so I fully intend on doing some DuPont journalism.
And they can't actually go back and retry or put him in jail now. I mean, I guess the best they could do was get the civil litigation against him. I mean, but also, can you imagine being married to this guy and finding out about this? Like, how would you ever forgive yourself? I would be saying to myself, how did I not see this? Like,
well, she had to have known because it happened in 2009, and she divorced him in 2014. Yeah.
She stayed with him?
That's what it
seems like.
Where
was the kid? Wait, you're going to tell me the kid remained in that house with this piece of shit?
I don't know. It's been so long since I looked deeply into the details, but from that article, like it happened in 2009, and then I don't know. I need to look more deeply. I hope that maybe she only found out in 2014, but I don't know. The Ranter Station 199. You can buy court decisions. Yay, rape.
Apparently you can, yes. I mean, this isn't the only example, obviously, that we have of this, but this is an incredibly repulsive one. I can't imagine any judge looking at this situation and thinking, I mean, this is terrible. This is worse than that kid that got off for rape because the rich kid in Stanford. I don't know if you remember that one. I can't think of his name right now.
Is this Brock?
Right. I mean, that was horrifying. A 3-year-old, though, raping a 3-year-old? I mean, rape is bad enough, but now we're raping your own 3-year-old daughter and getting away with it? America, you're a failed state.
Yeah. Yeah, freaking horrible.
Damn.
Let's do a Giuliani palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Clear everyone's. Oof. Giuliani is always good for a
laugh.
A laugh
to poke fun of.
Okay, everyone.
We need to put up the Four Seasons Garden Center as a green screen now.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that happened. That was so, like, what?
It's freaking believable. Yep. Yeah, and even though this story came out, it clearly did not make enough space.
Right.
Okay, so here's Rudy, my arch nemesis, and karma receiver. How 3 major. Okay, so this story is actually about the horribleness of both Rudy Giuliani as well as the horribleness of corporate media. So this is a real win for all good people and independent journalists. How 3 major news organizations all got a story about Rudy Giuliani wrong. And this harkens back to Russiagate, of course. If you'll all remember Rachel Maddow and friends and their constant call of everything, being Russia's fault and everything being tied to Russia, they're still doing it. So incorrect information from government sources apparently led 3 separate organizations, including, they're not including me. Incorrect, this is out of the Washington Post, and they were one of them. Incorrect information from government sources apparently led 3 separate news organizations. I have to.
Jen, it's just like the Iraq War we were just talking about, isn't it? They just took the source as verbatim being true without questioning it. Big mistake.
Or did they do it on purpose?
The New York Times?
The Washington Post, everyone.
Washington Post, yeah. I mean, they're stenographers for War Incorporated, possibly, but I do genuinely believe that particular reporter, and I can't remember her name now, you're taking me back 20 years. I think she just never questioned it and kept reporting this stuff, which was just, and then it was like a house of cards, right?
I don't know. I think she, well, I don't know. I want to take a red pen and delete apparently, incorrect information from.
I know, right?
Led 3 separate news organizations, including this publication, to publish the same erroneous claim about Rudolph W. Giuliani last week that all 3 later corrected. The Washington Post, the New York Times, and NBC News all reported Thursday that the FBI had briefed the lawyer to President Donald Trump that he was a target of a Russian disinformation campaign during his efforts to dig up unflattering information about then-candidate Joe Biden in 2019. In fact, the news organizations later said in corrections appended to their story Saturday that Giuliani had not been briefed by the FBI. The original stories were published after Wednesday's FBI raid of Giuliani's office and home, part of a criminal investigation of his activities in Ukraine. The corrected versions of their stories, both the Post and NBC reported that the FBI was aware Giuliani was the target of a Russian operation, and that it planned to warn him about this, but ultimately did not. So this, the Post and the NBC reported that the FBI was a target of a Russian operation. So I even question that.
Yeah.
Because they always say
They always say that.
And they can always say this.
They can and do, yeah. I mean, the new Cold War is the old Cold War. It's just never ending.
But you can say this about any public political figure in the United States.
Yeah.
Any public political figure in the United States is a target of a Russian operation, because that is what we do to Russia. That is what Russia does to us.
Exactly. It's meaningless drivel.
So you can, at any time, the Washington Post can make a headline whenever they want to about Rudy Giuliani saying this. At any time, they can make a headline about Trump saying this. At any time, they could make a headline about Biden saying this, but they will never do so. At any time, they could make a headline saying this about Hillary Clinton, but they will never do so. At any time, they could make a headline about anyone that they want to, but they will only do so when it suits their needs. So this is a very disingenuous thing. This is manufacturing consent. This is propaganda. So the 3 news organizations were reluctant Monday to discuss their sources. Imagine that. And reporting methods. Imagine that. Why would you be reluctant to discuss your reporting methods? That is very sketchy. In its correction, NBC said the incorrect claim about a Giuliani disinformation briefing was based on a source familiar with the matter. But a second source now says the briefing was only prepared for Giuliani and not delivered to him. in part over concerns it might complicate the criminal investigation of Giuliani. The Washington Post, which was the first to present the briefing claim, originally cited several current and former U.S. officials and people familiar with the matter as the sources of information it later retracted. But it appears that competitive pressures and a lack of response from Giuliani and his representatives on deadline helped push the stories in the wrong direction. What an admission! That's amazing.
That is amazing. Come on, Washington Post. I mean, this is an organization that has every resource at its fingertips. Wow.
Just incredible. Make that the headline.
Yeah, they buried the lead.
Yeah. We weren't rigorous enough, conceded Times editor Dean Baquet in an interview Monday. Baquet said the Times reporters scrambled to match what appeared to be a major Giuliani scoop by the Post after it was published Thursday. And that's the thing. You know, the Times is supposed to be the paper of record. The Washington Post is essentially on the same level. By the same level, I mean they're all terrible. And and they're trying to out-scoop each other. They definitely had the same source, the same propagandistic source, and they're just, this is not journalism. This is not.
No, it's not
journalism. This is disgusting, and it's all.
I mean, they're not really, like, it's one thing to say I'm going to protect an anonymous source and I'm going to verify what this person has told me. That's one thing, right? It's another thing to do what they're doing. Yes. They're just saying, according to several U.S. officials, right? Well, if it's U.S. officials, you're going to have to get one of them to go on record.
Yep. Yeah.
Or in the very least, supply you with a paper trail that's verifiable.
Yeah, and this is something that Jordan and I are working on a story, a Flint story right now, another Flint story. And I have to tell you, the level of vetting that we're going through for sourcing is, oh my gosh, just about 10 levels deeper and more thorough than
the New York Times, apparently.
The lawyer who's, so a story, for those who don't know, before publishing a story, it goes through editing, it goes through an editor, it goes through a check with fact checker, and it goes through a lawyer to make sure for deep investigative stories, especially when
something that might open you up to liability as a paper if you publish.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you are revealing information about people, public figures, or people who may go after you.
Corrupt public officials.
Corrupt public officials. Yes. So we are
corrupt police officers.
We're being very, very thorough, and the lawyer is being extremely thorough. And so these are supposed to be the top newspapers in the entire world. And
I tell you what, Jen, if we came to them with a really fully vetted story, they would not print it as easily as they printed this.
No.
They would probably give us a hard time. That's what slays me. You know what I'm saying?
We've tried.
Oh, see, exactly, right?
The New York Times tried to steal our story once, but that's about it.
That does not shock me.
Meanwhile, the reporters on the story had attempted to reach Giuliani for comment before they published, but the lawyer did not respond, apparently because his phone and other electronic devices had been confiscated during the FBI raid. His attorney, Robert Costello...
He must have had an iPhone.
His attorney, Robert Costello, did not respond to multiple requests for comments by Post reporters Thursday. So they're talking about the corrections. So they're also saying the Post initially said OAN, One America News, which is like the worst. Well, between that and Newsnet, had been warned by the FBI as well. And
I think OAN might be worse, actually.
Yeah, so that's what it might be. So they're saying that they potentially withheld the information from Giuliani after all because it might compromise the investigation. But what reason would there be for withholding that information from OAN? So this is a bizarre.
That is bizarre. That is really bizarre.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. I got to ponder that one.
And then this is what happens. CNN also picked up the inaccurate Post story, repeating its inaccurate claim during a segment Friday. So all of these outlets pick each other's story up.
Right. Well, if one publishes it gives cover for the second. That's sort of how the house of cards goes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the Washington Post editors are going to say, well, the New York Times picked it up. We're safe. There's a degree of safeness to the story now. Yeah.
Well, and I have to wonder, was this on purpose that they published this, or was it truly a mistake, or was the source truly mistaken? So was it on purpose for the headlines? Because people don't really read the retractions.
The damage is done generally, right?
Right. So that's the same sort of, I mean, this is obviously a very different topic, but when Bernie won Iowa, but Pete Buttigieg took the headline, the damage was already done because the headline went out there and that's all people read. So with Giuliani, the headline went out there, the damage is already done. Obviously, I don't care about any damage to Giuliani, but I do care about truth in journalism. So I don't know what happened here, but it's fishy.
Well, it is fishy, and then of course they always hand the football back, the toxic football, I should say. Like, you're now kind of validating his claims of fake news.
Yes.
I mean, that's the worst part.
And imagine what OAN gets to report now. Oh, look what they said about us. Look what they said about Giuliani.
So
Jason,
bad.
no.
So
Jason
bad.
says, hold on, I thought Pete won Iowa. No, I hope you're kidding. He did not win Iowa. And a lot of people do actually probably think that, whether you're kidding or not. People do think Pete won Iowa. Pete did not win Iowa.
No, he did not win. I mean, Iowa, I was there. Hypatia's here now. Say hi, Hypatia. I was in that caucus in Iowa where we absolutely thought the caucus was over. I had been in the room the entire time. And Bernie Sanders had, six or five of the delegates. He just dominated this thing, dominated it. And then for some reason, after we left, after the thing we thought was over, they decided to do a coin toss, which is not the rules. The rules are if, oh God, you're making me think hard now. It was the wrong thing to do. Let's just put it that way before I get one of the details wrong because it's been so long. But they ended up having to overturn this decision later, but the damage was done, right? So there was a couple instances of that going on. But it allowed them to make those claims and sort of, even though they were on the margin, it gave them cover for it.
Yeah. Yep. That's how it works. It's how these people work. That's how the media works. It's how these politicians work. It's disgusting and it's so frustrating.
Right.
Okay, we've been going for about 2.5 hours. Do you guys want to give us some super chats and we'll answer some questions for about 5 minutes?
Or Hypatia will too. Hypatia wants
Hypatia answers questions.
She does. She says, "Woof." This is how I know we've been going for 2 hours because she showed up and she's like, "Mommy."
Hypatia's a sweetie girl.
Jason, how can you call Jen? How can you call me up? Wait, what did I miss? I appreciate her.
Did something special, I appreciate.
Oh, okay, I missed that part. I'm like, wait, what did I miss?
I knew you had to be joking. I knew you had to be. If you're a Status Quo viewer, you have to know that Bernie won Iowa.
Oh, there it is.
The Bernie man.
Yeah, that was a fun trip. Bernie Sanders had a Super Bowl party. Jordan was there live streaming.
Yeah, he live streamed for a hell of a long time that night. By the way, I talked.
I had beers. He live streamed. I'm like, I'm having some beers.
Jordan's having a good time on his honeymoon, so he's taking a well-deserved break. He looks relaxed and happy. So we'll be live streaming all this week. Hopefully YouTube will not suppress us tomorrow.
Right.
Be ideal. And let's see. Donnie Posner, I was encouraged by a guest on Lee Camp, ex-soldier who helps other soldiers defy orders and quit their commitment. Interesting. Like to see that they all should quit.
Do you know what organization he works for, Danny? I'd be curious to know. Is it About Face? Or is Jonathan, if you're still in the chat, is this, I heard about this organization that's doing something like this. I'm wondering if it's the same one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Mike Eisner, Abby Martin's fiance, is really interesting on this topic as well. Former soldier.
Oh, okay. Bo of the Fifth Column offers an insightful and enlightened voice on U.S. foreign policy. He is ex-military and okay. I've seen some tweets mention this individual. I'm going to have to check that out.
I subscribe to the podcast. I haven't listened to it yet, though, but I know.
Okay.
Mad World.
Maybe we should have him on as a guest.
Yeah, we should.
I think, look, I think people that have served in the military that have been in those environments do have a certain perspective that we cannot entirely know. We can obviously have empathy towards it and ask questions and have understanding, but it's still not the same thing as what they went through, the experiences that they have.
Yeah,
that formed those opinions. So I really like talking to these guys. I learn a lot every time I do.
Yeah, I agree. They have a needed perspective and experience for sure. Mad World 1962 missed my super chat. Sorry about that. They disappear, and it's so frustrating. I wish they.
Oh, Daniel Shaver. Wasn't he the one that had like it was a fake gun it ended up being, but they thought it was like an AK-47 or something outside of a hotel window. This was a few years back. I don't know Tyler Rushing though. That's the tragic thing. There's so many of these things that we don't even know all of them. That's insane. Think about that for a second.
I just screenshotted this Mad World, and I will look these up. I'm not familiar. The names sound familiar, but the cases are not.
Okay, and the cop that killed Shaver was acquitted. Yes, of course. I hate to say yes, of course, but that's generally the case. I think other than Derek Chauvin, has there been any other one that's ever been held? I mean, it's that thing that we go back to, the qualified immunity. It's a problem.
Tina already read yours, but thanks for the super chat menu frog. I think that's
sorry. Yes.
No, it's okay. I was just saying thanks for the Aussie dollars. Thank you, everybody. You guys are amazing. This and absolutely fantastic. Super, super helpful. You guys are truly the reason we're able to do this. We are super small. We're independent. And only to you guys. Oh, Sarah was on Lee Camp Show today. Oh, by the way, I am so excited. I'm actually going to go find it because I'm so excited about this. Abby.
I'm a fan of Lee Camp. Totally on the record saying.
Yeah, Lee's great.
Lee's great.
Abby, who I love. Abby's so sweet. Yeah. But Abby is doing a new. Where is it? Abby is doing a new Empire Files series, and it's coming out soon.
Oh, cool!
I'm super excited about it. Hold on, let me find it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, she does great reporting on foreign policy issues.
This one, though, is not foreign policy.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
Hold on. So this one is CIA stories. Ooh. So I am so
That should be good.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So they don't say exactly when, but
cool.
It's coming in May. So that just reminded me because
I love it. These are all of the disclosed documents. There's got to be some great stuff in there.
Yeah, super excited. Yeah. So yeah, they're becoming fewer and fewer people that I fully trust in media, and Abby I definitely fully trust. Abby, Robbie, love, for sure. Definitely good people.
100%.
Super awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We had a small crowd today, but you guys kept. Oh, we have another super chat. we'll keep going in your shadows. No. Misanthropic and Out of Coffee. That's a great name.
Yeah.
Super chat. Do you think a recall of AOC would push her to the left again? It would be quicker than a primary challenge. Conservatives would jump in out of spite. Well, let's say that a recall is possible, which I don't think it would happen, but let's say it did. Yes, I do think it would push her left, because I think like human nature is, oh shit, I'm messing up. Like I better fix it. I think, for example, that's why Chuck Schumer is getting himself together a little bit, because he fears a challenge from AOC. So yeah, I do think that it would get her to rethink her positioning and her falling in line with Nancy a bit and Nancy's side. So yeah,
why do you think that's happening though in the first place? Because it's not just AOC.
You mean, well, when I was, see, I love Cory Bush.
Do you think it's just a lack of spine, of fear? I can't stand up for these things. Like, what do you think is driving that? Do you think that she's,
general, or not standing up? I do think on a human level, there is a lot that we can't understand unless we're in that position. But I also think that it is, on another human level, I think it is natural when you're in a group to start falling in line.
Oh, 100%. I don't disagree with that. I mean, look at Ilhan Omar called Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear as well and I was like, what the hell? What the hell? Like, that kind of shocked me.
Yeah. And then when there is kind of that in this case, alpha female figure, who does have that experience and wields that power, and maybe you do convince yourself, if I give in to Nancy on this, if I get on her good side, maybe I can get this.
That's just so naive, though. That's just not going to happen. Part of that might be youth, too. I mean,
yeah, it very well could be. Like, maybe in AOC's mind, she's like, give it 4 years and get on Nancy's good side, and then I can do this. But I don't know. Or maybe AOC is just giving up. Maybe
I don't know either. It feels like she's giving up. It does
feel like that. I have been extremely disappointed with AOC. Her saying like Biden has far exceeded progressives' expectations. I have to say,
I mean, it's true in the sense that we had no expectations of him, but it's also not true in the sense that the implication is that he's done a lot of progressive policy, and that's just not true.
Exactly.
That's just not true.
I have to say, Biden is not as terrible. Like, I would have phrased it as, yeah, Biden's not as shitty as I thought he would be. I wouldn't say like, oh, Biden has far exceeded my progressive expectations. Yeah, so that's the wrong framing on her part, and so yeah.
And also, I have to say, her answer on Israel-Palestine was completely unacceptable. It showed that she had absolutely no understanding of the situation whatsoever. And I would have been happier with her if she had just said, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about this before I answer that. Because what she said was, was that even an answer? I mean, does everybody know what I'm talking about here, by the way?
I don't remember that.
So this was about, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, actually. And remember, it accumulated in somebody having the CHP, California Highway Patrol, show up at their house for a tweet.
Yeah.
Okay, so what started that was a criticism of
tweet.
Like, it's almost worth pulling that up and showing the video. People haven't seen this because it is really, okay, so let me go back a little bit and say that I always found her answers in this particular area to be really lacking, even when she was running for office. So this was an area that she was never going to shine in, that she needed to learn more about. I mean, more than once I've seen her argue with leftist Jewish folks on Twitter, because she's taken an AIPAC sort of line of reasoning, and she's doing that sort of talking point where I'm pro-Jewish people, so I'm going to do what AIPAC says. And again, we don't do this thing where all groups are monolithic in their beliefs. And if you're going to run as a leftist, please take a step back and at least listen to the leftist Jewish folks that are saying to you, no, we have a problem with this, and this is why. And she had a tendency to not do that. So that was true when she was running for office. So now we've escalated to the point where she's now in office. She's being asked, and I can't remember who was asking her this question, whether it was might have been one of the Israeli lobbyists. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember.
Here we go.
Oh, you found it? Okay. So this will be helpful for people to get a sense of what. But I think this is really a clear-cut example of the problem here, where it's just, she deserves the criticism that came at her for this in every way, shape, and form, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, here it is.
Oh, this is a stupid Daily Mail. Sorry, guys.
Garnier brightening serum cream to reveal glowing skin.
It's like an ad. Go away, ad.
SPF 30. 3 products in one.
I do not endorse this product or
Garnier brightening
Amazon.
serum cream by Garnier, naturally.
How do you make the ad stop?
You think can be taken to support movements towards peace, both between Israelis and Palestinians, as well as within the entire region, such as the Abraham Accords.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, earlier just now, you and I were talking about the what and the how.
Yes.
And I think that when we talk about establishing peace, centering people's humanities, protecting people's rights, it's not just about the what and the end goal, which often gets a lot of focus. But I actually think it's much more about the how and the way that we are coming together and how we interpret that what and how we act in the actions that we take to get to that what. And so what this really is about is that it's a question more than anything else about process. And so we really need to make sure that we're doing a process where all parties are respected and have, a lot of equal opportunity to really make sure that we are negotiating good faith, etc.
Yeah, Hypatia doesn't like it at all.
There's just this one central issue of settlements, because if the what that has been decided on is to stay, then the action of settlements it's not the how to get to that what. And so, I think that's
I just can't. She actually has no idea what she's talking about. She has no idea what she's talking about.
So then this says Ryan Wentz tweeted on April 7th that EOC's remarks on Palestine and Israel were incredibly underwhelming. He was being interviewed by Marvin Miller, the head of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. A day after posting the tweet, 2 California Highway Patrol officers visited him at home in LA. He says they accused him of threatening to kill the New York Congresswoman. They said the threat was reported by Capitol Police in DC, and they forwarded it to him. So
the whole thing is absolutely outrageous and crazy.
Insane.
And it all started, quite frankly, his criticism that saying that her response is underwhelming is being kind. That response, underwhelming? Are you kidding me? It was a horrifying clusterfuck of a response.
Yeah.
The what of the how of that. You haven't said anything. What is your solution, AOC? What do you think should happen there? In the very least, you should have some sort of an answer to that. Are you somebody that's still trying to say a two-state solution is possible? If so, explain to me how that is the case when you have settlement expansion over the entire area. I mean, let's at least put what the facts on the table so we can have this conversation. But she's not even well-versed enough in what's going on there to have that conversation. And every time a leftist Jewish person tries to say to her, not everybody is on the same page on this. There are variant points of views. Please listen to what we have to say as well. If you're and look, and that's also, I'm also going to say that other people are allowed to have an opinion on this as well. You could be a non-Jewish person and have a very well-formulated idea of what's going on in Israel and Palestine.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say that as well. But anyway, her entire response shows that she has zero understanding of what's going on there, what has been transpiring there for decades. And it was just very cringy. Underwhelming? Yeah, no, it was just like, wow.
Right.
And obviously she's had years now to learn something on this, and she's chosen not to. Or she has, and she doesn't want to actually say what she thinks, which is just as repulsive to me. I mean, at least Bernie Sanders is willing to have that conversation. He's listened to all the factions, and he did move. You know, Dr. Zogby, spent hours, I have no doubt, talking with him through these things, the two of them. So, Bernie's response, a lot of people don't think it's leftist enough, but it's very much to the left of any other American politicians. And at least Bernie has a deeper understanding of what's actually going on there.
Right.
He's not pretending that the settlements aren't over the entire territory, and now we're going into the Golan Heights, which is Syria. Sorry, folks, I went off on a little bit of a tangent here.
No, it's good. It's good. All right, my mind is melting. We've been going for almost 3 hours.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just losing my brain fog is coming in, is rolling in. But thank you so much, guys. Before we fully check out, though, I want to give you your list of things to do. As we do here at the Coup, you have homework, but it's fun homework. Okay, you like it? It says be cool, like be cool, right? It's cute. No. Okay. Text COUP to 370-370 so you know when we go live. Do it now. Don't forget. Follow and support us everywhere. If you go to statuscoup.pub/us, you'll see a site that I set up that it makes it easy to find all of our links. So all of our social, everything. So statuscoup.pub/us. And we also have a TikTok now. This is very exciting.
Right, the TikTok. This is very exciting.
Find us at TikTok. Follow us at TikTok. We're just getting started here. Very exciting. Follow us there. Follow us at Instagram, which we are growing and really paying attention to. We're trying to spread out on social media so that it doesn't matter if one site kicks us off or something. You can find us everywhere. So do follow us on Instagram as well. We're everywhere at Status Coup. Also, join our email list because you can't rely on social media sites. Our text list and our email list ensures that no matter what happens, we can always tell you how to look for videos and how to find us. So, all right. And reminder, Jordan's on his honeymoon. Very well deserved.
Yes. Having drinks poolside with a knot, I'm hoping.
Yeah. Yay. Okay, so we appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yep. Same time, same bat channel, and may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.